What you're about to hear sounds unbelievable, but every word of it is true. If you love unexpected twists, hit that like button and stay until the end. And when you hear the final reveal, tell me, did you see it coming?
The marriage contract expires in 4 hours. Victor Serrano, the crime boss who controlled her fate for 6 brutal months, has already signed the release papers. Lena Carter should be celebrating her freedom, packing her bags, running as far from this dangerous world as possible. Instead, she's standing in his penthouse as gunfire erupts below, watching armed men storm the building to kill them both. The deal was simple: 6 months as his fake wife, then freedom. But somewhere between the lies and the luxury, everything changed. Now Lena faces an impossible choice: escape while she still can, or stay and fight beside the man who was never supposed to matter. If you're hooked, stay with me until the end of this story. And when you do, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I want to see how far this tale travels. The emergency room fluorescent lights had been Lena Carter's entire world for the past 14 hours. Her scrubs stuck to her back with dried sweat, her feet screamed inside shoes that had given up any pretense of support around hour 9, and her hands, those steady, capable hands that had sutured wounds and started IVs and held the hand of a dying man while his family raced through traffic, those hands wouldn't stop shaking. "Carter, you're off rotation." "Doctor." Meta's voice cut through the chaos of the ER floor. "Go home. You're no good to anyone this exhausted." Lena nodded, too tired to argue. She'd pulled a double shift because Jenny had called in sick again, and because the hospital was understaffed as always, and because, if she was being honest with herself, going home to her studio apartment meant facing the stack of bills on her kitchen counter. Medical bills, utilities, the credit card statements she'd stopped opening. Her father's debts, transferred to her name through some legal sleight of hand she still didn't fully understand. Robert Carter had vanished 8 months ago. No note, no explanation, just gone. He'd left behind an apartment full of furniture, a car with expired registration, and enough debt to drown his only daughter. The police had filed a missing persons report and promptly forgotten about it. Adult male, no signs of foul play, probably ran from his debts. That's what the detective had implied without actually saying it. But Lena knew her father. He'd raised her alone after her mother died, worked 2 jobs to put her through nursing school, never missed a birthday or a chance to tell her he was proud. Men like that didn't just disappear. Except, apparently, they did. She grabbed her coat from her locker, ignored the tear in the lining she couldn't afford to fix, and pushed through the staff exit into the Chicago night. The cold hit her like a physical blow. February in Chicago was unforgiving, the kind of cold that found every gap in your clothing, every vulnerable inch of exposed skin. Snow fell in thick, lazy flakes that would have been beautiful if Lena had the energy to appreciate them. Instead, she hunched deeper into her inadequate coat and started the 6-block walk to the L station. Her breath formed clouds in the frozen air. The street was nearly empty. Most people smart enough to be inside on a night like this. The few pedestrians she passed moved quickly, heads down, focused on getting wherever they were going. Lena was halfway through her 2nd block when she noticed the car. Black. Expensive. Completely out of place in this neighborhood of pawn shops and convenience stores with bars on the windows. It rolled along beside her, keeping pace with her footsteps, its engine a low purr that somehow cut through the city noise. Her heart rate kicked up. She'd worked enough trauma cases to know how these stories ended. She picked up her pace, hand diving into her pocket for her phone. The car pulled ahead and stopped. The back door opened. Lena's fingers found the emergency call button, but she didn't press it. Not yet. Because the man stepping out of the car didn't look like a street criminal. He looked like money, the kind of money that came with tailored suits, Italian leather shoes, and the sort of quiet confidence that made people move out of the way without being asked. He was tall, dark-haired, maybe 40, handsome in a way that felt dangerous, like a beautifully crafted knife. His eyes found hers across the snowy sidewalk, and Lena felt something cold slide down her spine that had nothing to do with the weather. Lena Carter. His voice was smooth, educated, with the barest trace of an accent she couldn't place. Not a question, a statement. She stopped walking. "Who's asking?" "Someone with information about your father." He gestured to the open car door. Get in. We need to talk. Every self-preservation instinct Lena possessed screamed at her to run. Scream. Press that emergency button and wait for the police. This was exactly the kind of situation they warned you about. Strange men, expensive cars, promises of information in exchange for getting into an unmarked vehicle. But he'd said her father's name. I don't get into cars with strangers, Lena said, proud that her voice came out steady despite the fear tap dancing up her spine. The man smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Victor Serrano, now we're not strangers. And your father, Robert Carter, former accountant, currently missing for 8 months and 12 days, is alive. But he won't be for much longer unless you get in this car and listen to what I have to say. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Alive. Her father was alive. Lena's thumb hovered over the emergency button. She should call the police. She should run. She should do literally anything other than what she did next. She got into the car. The interior was warm, leather seats that probably cost more than her annual salary, and a privacy screen separating them from the driver. Victor Serrano slid in beside her, and the door closed with a solid, expensive thunk that sounded disturbingly final. Where is he? Lena demanded. Where's my father? Safe. Victor settled back against the leather, studying her with eyes that seemed to catalog every detail. For now. The car pulled smoothly into traffic. Lena's hand stayed in her pocket, phone still gripped tight. That's not an answer. No, it's not. Victor reached for something, and Lena flinched. He paused, then slowly retrieved a tablet from a compartment in the door. He tapped the screen a few times, then turned it toward her. The video showed a small, clean room, a bed, a table, a chair, and sitting at that table, looking thinner than she remembered but unmistakably alive, was Robert Carter. Lena's breath caught. She reached for the tablet with shaking hands, but Victor pulled it back. He's alive, Victor said quietly, and he'll stay that way, as long as we can come to an arrangement. The fear in Lena's chest transformed into something sharper. Anger. What kind of arrangement? The kind where I explain what your father did, and you understand exactly how much danger both of you are in. Victor set the tablet aside. Robert Carter was hired to do some accounting work. Freelance, under the table, the kind of job that pays too well for anyone to ask questions about where the money comes from. Lena's stomach dropped. You're telling me my father worked for criminals? I'm telling you your father discovered he was working for criminals, and instead of walking away quietly, he decided to be a hero. Victor's expression didn't change, but something in his tone sharpened. He copied files. Financial records, transaction histories, names and dates of operations spanning 3 organizations. He planned to take everything to the FBI. Good, Lena said, even as her mind raced. That sounded like her father, the man who'd taught her to always do the right thing, even when it was hard. He should have. He should have understood that crossing multiple criminal enterprises gets you killed, Victor countered, along with everyone you love. The only reason Robert Carter is alive right now is because I found him first. The implication settled over Lena like a shroud. You're one of them, the criminals. I'm the one keeping your father breathing. Victor's gaze never wavered. The files he stole implicate several organizations, including mine. But I'm not the one who wants him dead. Gabriel Torres, Mikhail Volkov, the Santini family, they all want those files destroyed and anyone who saw them eliminated. I convinced them I would handle the situation. By kidnapping my father. By protecting your father, Victor corrected. And by extension, protecting you. Because the moment those other organizations learn Robert Carter has a daughter, you become leverage. You become a target. Lena's mind spun. This couldn't be real. She was a nurse. She helped people. She lived in a studio apartment with water damage and a radiator that only worked half the time. She didn't belong in whatever world this man inhabited. So what? She said. You want the files? I don't have them. I don't know anything about my father's work. I know you don't. Victor shifted, and suddenly the space between them felt smaller. The files have been secured and destroyed. That problem is solved. But I still have a different problem. One your father inadvertently created when he disappeared. I don't understand. I run a significant operation, Miss Carter. Import-export, real estate development, private security, all legitimate on paper, some more legitimate than others in practice. His tone was matter of fact, like he was discussing the weather. To maintain that legitimacy, to keep the authorities and my competitors at a comfortable distance, I need to present a certain image. Stable, respectable, the kind of man who belongs at charity galas and city council meetings. And you're not that man, Lena said. I am that man when I need to be. Victor smiled slightly. But there's a persistent rumor that I'm, let's say, too focused on business. Too dangerous. Too much the criminal, not enough the businessman. These rumors make people nervous. Nervous people cause problems. Lena still didn't understand where this was going. What does any of this have to do with me? Everything, as of right now. Victor's eyes locked on hers. I need to reshape my public image. I need to be seen as stable, committed, capable of normal human relationships. I need people to believe I'm building a life, not just an empire. The pieces clicked together in Lena's mind, forming a picture so absurd she almost laughed. You want to get married? I want us to get married, Victor clarified. A 6-month arrangement. You become my fiancé, we have a tasteful wedding, you appear with me at social functions, and we maintain the fiction of a loving relationship for half a year. In return, your father goes free with a new identity and enough money to start over safely. Your debts disappear. You receive a substantial payment for your time and discretion. Lena stared at him. You're insane. I'm pragmatic. Victor pulled out another tablet, this one showing what looked like legal documents. 6 months of your life in exchange for your father's safety and your financial freedom. You'll live in my home, appear in public as my partner, and in private maintain whatever boundaries you need to feel comfortable. When the 6 months end, we divorce quietly, you walk away with enough money to do whatever you want, and your father lives peacefully under federal protection with a new name. And if I say no? Victor's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the car seemed to drop. If you say no, I have to find another solution to the problem of Robert Carter, a man who knows too much and has become a liability I can no longer afford to protect. And you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if the debt collectors breaking down your door are there for money or for something worse. It wasn't a threat. It was a simple statement of fact, delivered without malice or emotion. Somehow, that made it more terrifying. This is extortion, Lena whispered. This is survival. Victor set the tablet aside. For both of us. I need the respectability you can provide. You need your father alive and your life back. We can give each other what we need, Miss Carter. All it costs is 6 months. The car had been driving in circles, Lena realized. They were back near the hospital, the familiar streets a surreal contrast to the conversation happening inside this mobile prison. I need time to think, she said. You have until we reach your apartment. Victor gestured, and Lena realized they were heading toward her building. He knew where she lived. Of course he did. 3 blocks. That's how much time you have to decide whether your father lives or dies. Lena's hands clenched in her lap. 3 blocks. 3 blocks to make a decision that would alter the entire trajectory of her life. Marry a criminal to save her father. Sell 6 months of her life for his freedom. What choice did she really have? The car pulled up in front of her building. The peeling paint, the broken buzzer system, the stairs she climbed every day because the elevator hadn't worked in months. Through the window, she could see Mr. Chen's bodega on the corner, its neon sign flickering. Her life. Small, struggling, but hers. Final answer, Miss Carter, Victor said softly. Lena thought about her father sitting in that clean, safe room, alive, but imprisoned. She thought about the bills on her counter, the debt that would follow her for decades. She thought about the alternative, saying no, going back to her apartment, and waiting to find out what happened when a man like Victor Serrano had no more use for leverage. She thought about how few real choices she'd ever actually had in her life. 6 months, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. And then we're done. My father goes free, I get paid, and you never contact either of us again. Victor extended his hand. 6 months. You have my word. Lena looked at that outstretched hand, perfectly manicured, belonging to a man who just blackmailed her into marriage. She thought about everything her father had taught her about right and wrong, about doing what was necessary to protect the people you loved. She shook his hand. Victor's grip was firm, warm, completely at odds with the cold calculation in his eyes. We start tomorrow. A car will pick you up at 9 a.m. Bring anything you can't live without for 6 months. Everything else will be provided. Tomorrow? Lena pulled her hand back. I have a job. I have a lease. I have a life. You have a 2-week notice to submit and a landlord who will be more than happy to tear up your lease when I buy the building tomorrow morning. Victor's tone was pleasant, but underneath it was steel. Your life as you knew it ended the moment you got into this car, Miss Carter. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. The door opened. Lena hadn't even noticed the car had stopped. She climbed out on shaking legs, the cold air a shock after the climate-controlled interior. Behind her, Victor's voice followed her into the night. 9 a.m., Lena. Don't make me come looking for you. The car pulled away, leaving her standing on the snowy sidewalk. Her entire world fundamentally changed in the space of a 15-minute car ride. Lena made it up 3 flights of stairs, into her apartment, and exactly 2 steps past the threshold before her legs gave out. She sat down hard on the ancient linoleum, her back against the door, and tried to process what had just happened. She'd agreed to marry a criminal. 6 months. That's all it was. 6 months of playing a role, of pretending to be someone she wasn't, and then freedom, for her father and for herself. Lena pulled out her phone and stared at it. She should call someone, tell someone. But who? The police? And tell them what? That she'd willingly agreed to marry a crime boss to save her kidnapped father? They'd either laugh at her or arrest her for conspiracy. Her friends? The few she had were already distant, their lives moving forward while hers stood still under the weight of debt and double shifts. How could she explain this to anyone? She couldn't. This was her burden to carry alone. Lena eventually pulled herself up and walked through her apartment, seeing it with new eyes. The thrift store furniture she'd been so proud of finding. The nurse's scrubs hanging in her closet. The medical textbooks on her shelf. The photograph of her and her father at her nursing school graduation, both of them smiling, believing they had a future. All of it, her entire life, reduced to whatever she could fit in a bag by 9 a.m. tomorrow. She pulled out her battered duffel bag and started packing mechanically. Clothes, toiletries, the few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to her mother. The photograph. A few books. It all fit easily, her entire existence compressed into a single bag with room to spare. At 3 a.m., Lena sat down at her kitchen table and wrote her 2-week notice. She kept it simple, professional, offering no explanation beyond personal circumstances. Doctor. Meta would be furious. They were already short-staffed, but what choice did she have? None. That was the answer. She had no choice. At 6 a.m., Lena showered, standing under the lukewarm spray, the building's hot water was temperamental at best, and trying to imagine what came next. Victor's world would be different. Money, power, danger. All things completely foreign to her existence as an overworked nurse barely making rent. She dressed carefully in her nicest clothes, dark jeans, a sweater that wasn't pilling, her good boots. Looking at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Fear and determination warred in her eyes. At 8:45 a.m., Lena stood by her window, duffel bag at her feet, watching the street below. At exactly 9 a.m., the black car pulled up. No going back now. Lena grabbed her bag, took one last look at the apartment that had been her home for 3 years, and walked out without locking the door. What was the point? Victor owned the building now. He owned everything, including for the next 6 months, her. The same driver from last night opened the car door. He was professional, silent, his expression giving nothing away. Lena slid into the back seat, expecting to find Victor waiting. Instead, she found a woman. She was elegant, early 60s, with silver hair swept into a chignon and sharp, assessing eyes. She wore a designer suit in dove gray, and when she spoke, her accent was crisp and British. Miss Carter, I'm Margaret Brennan. I'll be helping you transition into your new role. She looked Lena up and down with an expression that managed to be both kind and utterly terrifying. We have a great deal of work to do. Work? Lena's voice came out smaller than she intended. My dear girl, you're about to become the fiancée of one of Chicago's most prominent businessmen. Margaret's smile was gentle but firm. You can't do that in off-the-rack clothing and drugstore makeup. Mr. Serrano has tasked me with ensuring you're prepared for the life you're about to enter. The car was already moving, pulling away from Lena's neighborhood and heading toward the gleaming towers of downtown Chicago. I'm a nurse, Lena said quietly. I don't know how to be whatever it is Victor needs me to be. You're a woman who saved her father's life by making an impossible choice, Margaret corrected. That takes courage, Miss Carter. Everything else can be taught. She pulled out yet another tablet. Apparently everyone in Victor's world traveled with them and began scrolling through what looked like schedules. We'll start with wardrobe today. Tomorrow, etiquette training. You'll need to learn how to navigate social situations, how to speak with the press, how to... The press? Lena's stomach dropped. I didn't agree to be on television. You agreed to be Victor Serrano's fiancée, Margaret said calmly. The press comes with the territory. Don't worry, we'll prepare you. By the time we're finished, you'll handle interviews like a professional. The car climbed higher into the city, leaving behind the neighborhoods Lena knew and entering a world of pristine streets, designer boutiques, and buildings that scraped the sky. They pulled up to a luxury shopping district that Lena had only ever seen from bus windows. The next 6 hours were a blur. Margaret shepherded her through store after store, each more expensive than the last. Designers Lena had only heard of in passing brought out dresses, suits, casual wear, evening gowns. She was measured, fitted, pinned, and styled until she felt like a doll being prepared for display. "This isn't me," Lena protested as a seamstress marked alterations on a cocktail dress that probably cost more than her monthly salary had been. "It is now," Margaret said, not unkindly. "Mr. Serrano needs you to look the part, Miss Carter. That means dressing like you belong in his world." By the time they finished, Lena had accumulated more clothing than she'd owned in her entire life. All of it would be delivered to the residence, Margaret's term for wherever Lena would be living. "Where exactly is this residence?" Lena asked as they climbed back into the car. Margaret's expression softened slightly. "The penthouse, top 3 floors of the Millennium Tower. It's quite beautiful. I think you'll be comfortable there." Comfortable. What a strange word for a gilded cage. The Millennium Tower dominated the skyline, all glass and steel and money. The car descended into an underground garage, passing security checkpoints that looked like they belonged at a military installation. They rode a private elevator that required both a key card and a fingerprint scan. The doors opened directly into the penthouse. Lena stepped out and stopped, unable to process what she was seeing. The space was enormous, floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of Chicago that made her dizzy, modern furniture that looked more like art than something you'd actually sit on, and a color palette of whites, grays, and blacks that felt both sophisticated and cold. "Mr. Serrano will be home at 7, Margaret informed her. "I suggest you rest and familiarize yourself with your new home. Your belongings from this morning have been placed in your bedroom, 2nd floor, East Wing. All of today's purchases will arrive within the hour." "East Wing?" Lena repeated faintly. The apartment had wings. "If you need anything, there's an intercom system. The staff is available to assist you." Margaret headed toward the elevator, then paused. "One piece of advice, Miss Carter. Victor Serrano is a complicated man, but he's not cruel. He chose you for this role because he believes you can handle it. Don't prove him wrong." Then she was gone, leaving Lena alone in a penthouse that felt more like a museum than a home. Lena wandered through the space, trying to orient herself. A living room with furniture that looked unused. A kitchen with appliances she didn't know how to operate. A dining room with a table that could seat 12. A library filled with leather-bound books in multiple languages. She found the stairs and climbed to the 2nd floor, her bedroom, and she used that term loosely because it was larger than her entire former apartment, featured a massive bed, another wall of windows, and an ensuite bathroom with a tub that could double as a swimming pool. Her duffel bag sat on the bed, looking pathetically small and out of place. Lena sat down next to it, the expensive mattress conforming to her weight in a way that felt foreign. Through the windows, Chicago spread out below her like a kingdom. Somewhere down there was the hospital where she'd worked yesterday. The apartment she'd left this morning, the life she'd thought was her future. All of it gone, traded away for 6 months in a stranger's penthouse. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Make yourself at home. We have dinner reservations at 8. Dress appropriately." V.S. Lena looked at the message, then at the view, then at her sad little duffel bag. 6 months. She could survive 6 months of anything. She had to believe that, because the alternative, that she'd just made the biggest mistake of her life, was too terrifying to contemplate. Lena stood up, squared her shoulders, and went to unpack. If she was going to play this role, she'd play it right. She owed her father that much. But as she hung up the few belongings she'd brought in a closet designed for a wardrobe 10 times the size, she couldn't shake the feeling that Victor Serrano had been lying about one crucial detail. This wasn't a 6-month arrangement. This was a trap. And she'd walked right into it. The dress that arrived at 6:30 was midnight blue silk, cut to hug curves Lena hadn't realized she possessed. It came with shoes that added 3 inches to her height and made her feel like she was walking on stilts, and jewelry that she was afraid to touch because it looked real. It probably was real. Margaret had included a note. Wear your hair down. Natural makeup. You're not trying to impress anyone. You already have. Lena stared at her reflection in the bathroom mirror, barely recognizing the woman looking back. The dress transformed her from exhausted nurse to something else entirely. Someone who might actually belong in a penthouse, standing beside a man like Victor Serrano. The illusion was perfect. Underneath, she was still terrified. At 7:45, she heard the elevator doors open downstairs. Footsteps crossed the marble floor, steady and unhurried. Lena's heart hammered against her ribs as she smoothed down the silk one more time and forced herself to walk toward the stairs. Victor stood in the living room, speaking quietly into his phone. He'd changed from the suit he'd worn last night into something even more expensive, charcoal gray with subtle pinstripes that probably cost more than her former apartment's yearly rent. When he looked up and saw her on the stairs, he went still. The phone call ended abruptly. "I'll call you back," he said into the device, his eyes never leaving Lena. She descended the stairs carefully, hyper-aware of the unfamiliar heels, of his gaze tracking her every movement. When she reached the bottom, Victor crossed the space between them in 3 strides. "You look—" He stopped himself, something flickering across his expression too quickly for her to identify. Margaret chose well. "She chose everything," Lena said, her voice sharper than intended, "including this life I'm apparently living now." Victor's mouth curved slightly. "You're angry." "I'm terrified," Lena corrected. "There's a difference." "Good." Victor reached out and adjusted the necklace at her throat, his fingers brushing her collarbone. The touch was impersonal, clinical, but Lena felt it like an electric shock. "Fear keeps you alert. Alert keeps you alive." "Comforting," Lena muttered, stepping back from his proximity. Victor's eyes glinted with what might have been amusement. "We need to establish some ground rules before we leave. First, in public, we're a couple. That means I touch you, your hand, your back, your waist. Nothing inappropriate, but enough to sell the illusion. If you're uncomfortable, squeeze my hand twice and I'll create distance." Lena nodded, filing away the signal. "Second, you don't speak to anyone about our arrangement. Not friends, not former coworkers, not a therapist. No one. The consequences of exposure would be severe. For you or for me? For your father." Victor's tone didn't change, but the implicit threat landed like a punch. "Third, when we're in public, you call me Victor. In private, you can call me whatever you like. But in front of others, we're familiar, comfortable, in love." The word felt obscene in his mouth. "And fourth," Victor continued, "you trust me to keep you safe. These events we'll attend aren't just social functions. There are people who would hurt you to get to me. You stay close, you follow my lead, and you don't wander off with strangers who seem friendly." "You mean people like you?" Lena asked. Victor's smile was cold. "Especially people like me." A phone chimed. Victor checked his watch. "The car is waiting. Ready to make your debut, Miss Carter?" No, absolutely not. She wanted to run back upstairs, lock herself in that enormous bedroom, and pretend this was all a nightmare she'd wake up from. Instead, she lifted her chin and met his gaze. "Let's get this over with." The restaurant was the kind of place Lena had only read about in magazines. Low lighting, tables spaced far enough apart for privacy, waiters who moved like dancers. A pianist played something classical in the corner, the music barely audible over the murmur of wealth and power. Every head turned when they walked in. Victor's hand settled at the small of Lena's back, warm through the silk, guiding her through the maze of tables. She felt the weight of curious stares, heard the whispers that followed in their wake. "Who is she? I've never seen her before. Victor Serrano doesn't date. This must be serious." Their table was in the back, private but positioned perfectly for visibility. Victor pulled out Lena's chair himself, a gesture so smoothly executed it had to be calculated. As she sat, his hand brushed her shoulder, lingering just long enough to be noticed. "Smile," he murmured, too low for anyone else to hear. "You're supposed to be falling in love with me." Lena smiled. It felt like baring her teeth. Victor took his seat across from her, and for a moment they simply looked at each other across the candlelit table. He was devastatingly handsome in this light, Lena realized with a jolt. The kind of handsome that made women stupid, that made them ignore red flags the size of billboards. She wouldn't be one of those women. "Tell me about yourself," Victor said, loud enough to be overheard by nearby tables. "I want to know everything." "You already know everything," Lena replied quietly. "You researched me before you had me kidnapped into this arrangement. I know facts." Victor's expression was pleasant, but his eyes held a challenge. "I don't know who you are. So tell me, Lena, if you weren't here with me tonight, where would you be?" The question caught her off guard. She thought about it, really thought about it. Probably asleep, or working another double shift, maybe watching a medical drama and yelling at the TV about everything they get wrong. Something genuine flickered across Victor's face. "You watch medical dramas?" "Everyone in healthcare does. It's therapeutic to critique them." Lena relaxed slightly, despite herself. "Last week I watched a show where they defibrillated a flatline. You can't defibrillate a flatline. That's not how it works." "I have no idea what that means," Victor admitted. "It means television lies." Lena met his eyes. "A lot." "In that, we agree." Victor signaled the waiter with a subtle gesture. "Wine?" "I don't drink much." "Tonight you do. 1 glass. It helps with the nerves." He ordered something in what sounded like flawless French, and Lena felt another piece of her understanding shift. This man wasn't just a criminal. He was educated, cultured, comfortable, moving through elite spaces, which somehow made him more dangerous, not less. The wine arrived, dark and red in crystal glasses. Victor raised his. "To new beginnings." Lena lifted her glass but didn't repeat the toast. She sipped carefully, and the wine exploded across her tongue, complex and probably expensive enough to pay her former electric bill. "What do you think?" Victor asked. "I think I've been drinking wine wrong my entire life." His laugh surprised her, genuine, unguarded, nothing like the calculated smiles he'd shown so far. Several nearby diners glanced over, and Lena realized that was the point. They were performing, creating a narrative for observers to gossip about. Victor Serrano, laughing with a mysterious woman. This would be tomorrow's rumor mill. "Your turn," Lena said, surprising herself. "Tell me something true." Victor's amusement faded. "That's a dangerous request. You said we need to be convincing. How can I pretend to love you if I don't know anything real about you?" For a long moment, Victor was silent. Then, "I was 8 years old when my father died. He was also in my line of work. He made enemies. One of them made an example of him." His voice was flat, empty of emotion. "They made me watch." Lena's breath caught. Whatever she'd expected, it wasn't that. "I'm sorry," she said softly. "Don't be. It taught me everything I needed to know about power and weakness." Victor's fingers tightened slightly on his wine glass. "My father was weak. He trusted the wrong people, showed mercy when he should have shown strength. I've never made that mistake." "Is that what I am?" Lena asked. "A mistake you're not making?" Victor's eyes locked on hers. "You're a necessary piece in a much larger game, but you're also—" He stopped himself, seeming to reconsider. "You're braver than I expected." "I'm terrified," Lena reminded him. "Brave and terrified aren't mutually exclusive." Victor leaned back as their food arrived. Dishes Lena couldn't pronounce, but that looked almost too beautiful to eat. "Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. You got in my car last night knowing it could be a trap. You're sitting here now, playing a role that could get you killed if you play it wrong. That's courage. Or stupidity. Often the same thing." Victor cut into his food with surgical precision. "Eat. People are watching, and a woman in love doesn't pick at her dinner." Lena ate. The food was extraordinary, each bite a revelation, but she barely tasted it. She was too aware of the eyes on them, the conversations happening just out of earshot, the way Victor's attention never fully left her even when he seemed focused on his meal. Halfway through dinner, a man approached their table. He was older, silver-haired, with the kind of expensive tan that came from private beaches and ski resorts. His suit probably cost more than a car, and his smile was all teeth. "Victor, I heard you were back in town." His eyes slid to Lena, assessing, calculating. "And you've been keeping secrets." Victor's expression remained pleasant, but Lena felt the shift in his energy, the way he angled his body slightly between her and the newcomer. "James, I didn't realize you dined here. I have a membership." James's smile widened. "Aren't you going to introduce me to your companion?" "Lena Carter, this is James Rothschild. He owns several property development firms." Victor's hand found Lena's on the table, his fingers lacing through hers in a gesture that looked natural but felt like a brand. "James, this is Lena, my fiancée." The word dropped like a bomb. James's smile froze. Around them, Lena heard the sudden silence as nearby conversations died, everyone straining to hear. "Fiancé," James repeated. "Well, this is news. Congratulations are in order, I suppose." "Thank you." Victor's thumb stroked across Lena's knuckles, and she forced herself not to flinch. "We're keeping things relatively quiet for now, but we're very happy." "I can see that." James's eyes narrowed slightly. "It's quite sudden, though, isn't it? I don't recall you mentioning anyone special last month at the Grantham benefit." "Some things develop quickly," Lena heard herself say. 3 sets of eyes turned to her. Victor's with surprise, James's with renewed interest. "When you know, you know. Isn't that what people say?" James laughed, the sound forced. "Indeed they do. Well, I won't keep you from your dinner. Victor, we should have lunch soon, discuss the Riverside project." "Of course. My assistant will coordinate." Victor's dismissal was polite but absolute. James retreated, but Lena could feel his attention from across the room, watching, assessing, reporting back to whoever asked. "That was well done," Victor said quietly, his hand still holding hers. "Quick thinking." "I have a question," Lena said, keeping her voice low. "Do you actually have friends, or are they all people like him?" Victor's expression darkened. "People like him are why I needed you. They're vultures circling, waiting for weakness. James Rothschild would slit my throat if he thought he could profit from it and get away with it." "Then why have dinner where he can see us?" "Because I want him to see us." Victor finally released her hand, reaching for his wine. "I want everyone to see us. That's the entire point of tonight, establishing the narrative. By tomorrow morning, everyone in our circles will know about you. By tomorrow evening, they'll have theories about who you are and what this means. By next week, they'll have accepted that I'm settled, stable, no longer the threat they thought I was." "And that makes you safer?" "It makes us both safer." Victor's gaze held hers. "The most dangerous time in this arrangement is now, when you're new and unprotected. Once people accept your mind, once they understand that hurting you means declaring war on me, you become untouchable." The possessive language should have bothered her. Instead, Lena felt a strange flutter of something she couldn't name. Safety, maybe. Or the illusion of it. "What happens after dinner?" she asked. "We go home. You get some rest. Tomorrow Margaret continues your training." Young Victor signaled for the check. "And tomorrow night, we attend a charity gala. Consider tonight a practice run." "I thought tonight was dinner." "Nothing is just dinner in my world, Lena." Victor stood, extending his hand to help her up. "Everything is strategy. The sooner you understand that, the better." Lena took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. As they walked through the restaurant, Victor's hand returned to her back, guiding her through the tables. This time Lena leaned into the touch slightly, playing her role. She felt the eyes on them, hungry and curious, felt the weight of being Victor Serrano's fiancée settling over her shoulders like a mantle. In the car, the privacy screen rose, cocooning them in silence. "You did well tonight," Victor said after several blocks. "Better than I expected for your first appearance." "I'm a quick study." Lena kicked off the tortuous heels, sighing with relief. "How long do I have to wear shoes like this?" "Until you learn to walk in them naturally." Victor was typing something on his phone, his attention split. "Margaret will arrange for a movement coach." Posture, gait, how to handle stairs and evening wear. I'm not a performing monkey, Lena interrupted. Victor's fingers stilled. He looked up slowly, and Lena saw something dangerous flash in his eyes. No, you're something far more valuable. You're my partner in this charade, which means you need to be flawless. People will look for cracks, for evidence this isn't real. We can't give them any. People like James Rothschild? Among others. Victor set his phone aside. James is relatively harmless, ambitious, opportunistic, but he operates within certain rules. It's the others you need to worry about. What others? Victor was quiet for a moment, seeming to weigh how much to tell her. Gabriel Torres. He runs the South Side operations. Gambling, some trafficking, enforcement. He's been challenging my territory for the past year, testing boundaries. If he thinks you're a weakness, he'll exploit it. Lena's mouth went dry. Will I meet him? Tomorrow night, he'll be at the gala. Victor's expression was unreadable. Stay close to me. Don't accept drinks from anyone else. Don't let him separate you from the crowd. You're scaring me. Good. You should be scared. Victor leaned forward slightly. Gabriel is charming, Lena. Handsome, cultured, funny. He'll make you feel special, like you're the only person in the room. And then, when you trust him, he'll use that trust to destroy everything you care about. It's his signature move. Why tell me this if he'll be there tomorrow? Because I need you to be prepared, to understand that the people in my world aren't what they seem. Victor's voice softened fractionally. I'm the monster who was honest about what I am from the beginning. Most of them hide it better. The car pulled into the underground garage. They rode the elevator in silence, the weight of tomorrow's performance hanging between them. Inside the penthouse, Lena headed straight for the stairs, exhaustion crashing over her in waves. Lena, she turned. Victor stood framed by the floor-to-ceiling windows, Chicago spread out behind him like a kingdom he ruled. You'll need a ring, he said. Margaret will take you shopping tomorrow before the gala. Choose whatever you like. You mean, choose whatever looks expensive enough to be believable. Victor's smile was sharp. I mean, choose whatever makes you happy when you look at it for the next 6 months. This arrangement may be fake, but the ring should be something you don't hate wearing. It was perhaps the kindest thing he'd said to her since this whole nightmare began. Thank you, Lena said quietly. She climbed the stairs to her borrowed bedroom, peeled off the beautiful dress, and stood under a shower hot enough to turn her skin pink. When she finally crawled into the enormous bed, she expected to lie awake for hours, her mind racing. Instead, she fell asleep almost instantly, exhausted by fear and performance and the strange, terrifying realization that some part of her had enjoyed tonight, enjoyed playing the role, enjoyed the weight of Victor's attention, enjoyed feeling for one evening like someone important instead of invisible. That enjoyment scared her more than anything else. Morning came too early. Margaret arrived at 8, impossibly put together in cream and pearl, wielding coffee and a schedule that made Lena's head spin. Breakfast first, then we select your ring, then hair and makeup, then final wardrobe fitting for tonight's gala. Margaret handed Lena the coffee. Black, no sugar, exactly how she liked it. How did Margaret know that? We have a great deal to accomplish. I'm not awake enough for this, Lena muttered into the cup. You'll learn to function on minimal sleep. It's a requirement of the position. Margaret gestured toward the dining room. Come, eat. You'll need your strength. Over eggs. Benedict that Lena definitely didn't know how to make, Margaret briefed her on the evening's event. The Grantham Foundation Gala is one of the city's premier charity events. Black tie, 500 guests, significant media presence. You'll be photographed extensively, likely interviewed. Your story is simple. You met Victor through mutual friends 3 months ago, fell in love quickly, and he proposed last week during a private dinner. That's not very detailed, Lena observed. Intentionally. The less specific you are, the harder it is to catch you in inconsistencies. Margaret made a note on her ever-present tablet. If anyone asks about your background, you're honest. You were a nurse. You believe in helping people. You're passionate about healthcare reform. Those are attractive qualities that make you sympathetic. I'm not sure I want to be sympathetic to people who... Lena stopped herself. Who what? Margaret's gaze sharpened. Say it. People who don't care that Victor makes his money through crime. Margaret set down her tablet, giving Lena her full attention. May I tell you something, Miss Carter? Something that might help you navigate the next 6 months? Lena nodded. Every person at that gala tonight has profited from something questionable. The real estate developers who displaced low-income families, the pharmaceutical executives who price medications beyond reach, the politicians who take donations from all of them. Margaret's voice was matter-of-fact. Victor Serrano is more honest than most because he doesn't pretend his hands are clean. But don't mistake the others for saints simply because they wear nicer suits. The words landed like a slap. Lena thought about the hospital administrators who cut nursing staff while giving themselves bonuses, the insurance companies that denied coverage for necessary treatments. The system that had buried her in debt while her father lay somewhere, imprisoned for trying to do the right thing. That's a very cynical view, Lena said finally. It's a very accurate view. Margaret picked up her tablet again. Finish your breakfast. We have shopping to do. The jewelry store was the kind of place that required an appointment and buzzed you in through a security door. Inside, glass cases displayed rings that cost more than Lena had made in her entire nursing career. Miss Carter, the jeweler was a thin man with careful hands and a quiet voice. Mr. Serrano has established an account for you. Please, look at anything that interests you. Lena moved slowly through the store, overwhelmed by the sheer value surrounding her. Diamonds the size of her thumbnail, emeralds that caught the light like trapped fire, sapphires so blue they looked unreal. What do you gravitate toward? Margaret asked. Color? Classic? Contemporary? I have no idea. Lena paused at a case displaying more modest pieces. Still expensive, but not obscene. I've never even thought about engagement rings. Think about it now. You'll wear this every day for 6 months. What makes you happy? Lena scanned the cases, and her eyes caught on something unexpected. Not in the engagement ring section, but in the vintage estate jewelry collection. A ring with a deep blue sapphire surrounded by small diamonds, the setting Art Deco, probably from the 1920s. That one, she said, pointing. The jeweler retrieved it carefully, placing it on a velvet pad. Excellent choice. Ceylon sapphire, nearly 3 carats, set in platinum with old European cut diamonds. Circa 1925. It's been in our collection for several years. We acquired it from an estate sale in Boston. He handed it to Lena. She slipped it on her finger and it fit perfectly, like it had been waiting for her. The sapphire caught the light, and Lena felt something click into place. This one, she said again, more firmly. Margaret smiled, the first genuine smile Lena had seen from her. Mr. Serrano said you'd choose something unexpected. He was right. He knew what I'd pick. He said you'd choose something with history over something flashy, something real. Margaret nodded to the jeweler. We'll take it. As they left the store, ring secure on Lena's finger, Margaret's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, and her expression tightened. Change of plans. We're going back to the penthouse. Mr. Serrano needs to speak with you. Is something wrong? I don't know. Margaret's tone suggested she did know, but wasn't sharing. But when Victor says immediately, he means it. They rode back in tense silence. Lena twisted the ring on her finger, feeling its unfamiliar weight, wondering what new disaster awaited. Victor was in his office when they arrived, a space Lena hadn't seen before. Dark wood, leather furniture, walls lined with books and art that probably belonged in museums. He stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and dangerous. I don't care what Gabriel thinks he's entitled to. The answer is no. A pause. If he has a problem with that, he can take it up with me directly. Tonight, if he's feeling brave. He ended the call and turned to face Lena. His expression was storm clouds and barely contained violence. We have a problem, he said without preamble. Gabriel knows about you. Someone at the restaurant last night talked, and now he's making moves. What kind of moves? Lena asked, fear crawling up her spine. He's suggested a meeting. Tomorrow. Just him and me. Victor's jaw tightened. But he specifically mentioned you, said he's interested in meeting my mysterious fiancée. It's a power play. So tell him no. I can't. Refusing a direct meeting request looks weak, and weakness in my position gets people killed. Victor crossed to his desk, pulling out what looked like security footage. But I can control the situation. The meeting will happen at a neutral location with my people present. You won't be there. Then why does this affect me? Victor looked at her, and Lena saw genuine concern in his eyes for the first time since they'd met. Because Gabriel Torres doesn't make idle comments. If he's asking about you, it means he's already planning how to use you against me. Starting tonight, your security detail doubles. You don't go anywhere alone, not even in this building. Security detail? Lena's voice rose. You didn't mention security details. I didn't think I'd need to. Most people in our position understand their targets. Victor's tone gentled slightly. I'm sorry, Lena. This is moving faster than I anticipated. Gabriel was supposed to be contained at least for a few more weeks. What changed? You changed everything. Victor gestured to the ring on her finger. You're my weakness now, publicly visible. Every enemy I have will try to exploit that. Lena sank into one of the leather chairs, the weight of her situation crushing down. I want to see my father. No. You promised. I promised he'd be safe and released at the end of 6 months. I never promised visitation. Victor's voice was firm, but not cruel. It's too dangerous right now. Gabriel has people everywhere. If he tracks you to your father's location, you both die. Then what was the point of any of this? Lena demanded. I'm trapped here. My father's still imprisoned, and now I have people actively planning to hurt me. This isn't what I agreed to. You agreed to 6 months in exchange for his life. Victor moved to stand in front of her, his voice quiet but intense. That deal stands. But the specifics have shifted, and we need to adapt. Together. Lena looked up at him, this man who held her future and her father's life in his hands. I don't trust you. I don't need you to trust me. Victor held her gaze. I need you to survive. Everything else is negotiable. Margaret cleared her throat from the doorway. We need to prepare for tonight. Hair and makeup will be here in an hour. Victor nodded, dismissing her with a glance. When they were alone again, he crouched down so he was eye level with Lena. Tonight will be difficult, he said. Gabriel will be there, watching, looking for weaknesses. You cannot show fear. You cannot show doubt. Whatever you're feeling right now, lock it away. When we walk into that gala, you're mine and I'm yours, and nothing and no one can shake that. I'm not an actress. You're better than that. You're a survivor. Victor's hand covered hers briefly. You saved lives in an emergency room. You made an impossible choice to protect your father. You're stronger than you think, Lena Carter. Tonight, you prove it. He stood and walked out, leaving Lena alone in his office, surrounded by the trappings of power and violence, wearing a ring that felt like a shackle and a promise all at once. She had 6 months to survive this. Starting with tonight. The gown waiting for Lena that evening was champagne-colored silk that shifted to gold in certain light, with a neckline that dipped lower than anything she'd ever worn. The stylist Margaret had sent worked in efficient silence, transforming Lena's hair into soft waves that cascaded over one shoulder, her makeup subtle but striking. When Lena finally looked in the mirror, she saw a stranger. Someone elegant, someone who belonged in Victor's world, someone who wasn't her at all. He's waiting downstairs, the stylist said, packing up her supplies. You look perfect, Miss Carter. Perfect for what? Lena wondered as she descended the stairs. Perfect for deception? Perfect for becoming a target? Victor stood at the bottom, and when he looked up at her, something shifted in his expression. Not the calculated assessment she'd grown used to, but something raw, hunger maybe, or appreciation. You'll cause a stir tonight, he said quietly, extending his hand. Lena took it, letting him guide her down the last few steps. That's the point, isn't it? The point is making you untouchable. Victor's fingers tightened on hers. Remember what I said. Stay close. Don't accept drinks from anyone but me or the waitstaff I've cleared. And if Gabriel approaches you when I'm not there, find you immediately. You've told me 3 times. Lena adjusted the unfamiliar weight of the gown. I'm terrified enough without the repetition. Good. Victor led her toward the elevator. Channel that fear into awareness. The moment you relax is the moment someone takes advantage. The car ride to the Grantham Hotel was silent. Victor absorbed in his phone while Lena watched the city slide past. Chicago looked different from this vantage point. Not the exhausted, struggling city she'd known as a nurse, but something glittering and dangerous. They pulled up to a red carpet flanked by photographers. Oh no, Lena breathed. You didn't mention cameras. I mentioned media presence. Victor's hand found hers again. Smile. Look at me like I'm the only person who matters. We're in love, remember? The door opened. Flash bulbs exploded like small bombs. Victor stepped out first, then turned to help Lena emerge. His hand was steady on hers, grounding her as she stood in the glare of a dozen cameras. She could hear the photographers shouting questions, could see the hunger in their eyes as they captured every angle. Victor, who's your date? Is this the mystery woman from Romano's last night? Miss, can we get a name? Victor's arm slid around Lena's waist, pulling her against his side. To the cameras, it probably looked romantic. To Lena, it felt like the only thing keeping her from falling. Just smile, he murmured against her hair, the words lost in the chaos. You're doing perfectly. They walked the carpet together, Victor stopping occasionally to exchange brief words with journalists he apparently knew. Each time, his hand stayed possessively on Lena's back, her waist, her shoulder. Marking territory. Making a statement. Inside the hotel, the ballroom took Lena's breath away. Crystal chandeliers threw rainbow light across hundreds of guests in formal wear, an orchestra played something classical and beautiful, and servers moved through the crowd with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that looked like tiny works of art. Stay with me, Victor said, guiding her into the crowd. The next hour was a blur of introductions. Business associates, politicians, socialites, all of them curious about Lena, all of them trying to extract information while appearing friendly. Victor handled each interaction with practiced ease, giving just enough detail to satisfy curiosity while revealing nothing substantial. Lena is a healthcare professional, he'd say, his voice warm with manufactured affection. We met through mutual friends. I knew within minutes that she was special. And Lena would smile and nod and play the role of besotted fiancée, all while her anxiety ratcheted higher with each passing minute. Because somewhere in this crowd was Gabriel Torres, watching, waiting, planning how to use her as a weapon. You're doing well, Victor murmured during a rare moment of privacy. They stood near the bar, his body angled to shield her from most of the room. Better than well, actually. Several people have mentioned how natural we seem together. I'm a good liar, apparently. Lena accepted the champagne Victor handed her, grateful for something to do with her hands. Who knew? It's not lying if you commit to the role fully. Victor's eyes scanned the crowd constantly, never settling. In many ways, you become the person you're pretending to be. Is that what you did? Pretended to be a legitimate businessman until you became one? Victor's mouth curved. Something like that. Though I've never pretended to be anything other than dangerous. A ripple moved through the crowd near the entrance. Lena felt Victor go still beside her, felt the subtle shift in his energy from relaxed to alert. He's here, Victor said softly. Lena followed his gaze and saw a man entering the ballroom. He was tall, dark-haired like Victor, but younger, maybe mid-30s, handsome in a way that made people look twice. Sharp cheekbones, easy smile, movements that suggested coiled grace. He wore his tuxedo like a second skin, completely comfortable in this world of wealth and power. Gabriel Torres. He's coming this way, Lena whispered, her heart hammering. I know. Victor's hand settled at her waist, pulling her closer. Remember what I told you. He'll be charming. Don't let it work. Gabriel cut through the crowd like a shark through water, people parting unconsciously to let him pass. When he reached them, his smile was warm and his eyes were cold. Victor, how wonderful to see you. His gaze slid to Lena. And this must be the famous Lena Carter. I've heard so much about you. All good things, I hope, Lena said, proud that her voice didn't shake. Fascinating things. Gabriel extended his hand. Gabriel Torres, I'm an old friend of Victor's. Lena shook his hand briefly. His grip was firm, lingering just a moment too long. Friend seems like a strong word. Gabriel laughed, delighted. Oh, she's sharp. I like her already, Victor. Where have you been hiding this one? I haven't been hiding anything. Victor's voice was pleasant, but Lena heard the warning underneath. Lena and I simply prefer privacy. Of course, Gabriel signaled a passing waiter, taking champagne for himself. Though you must admit, Victor, keeping secrets in our circles is difficult. People talk, rumors spread. And when someone as notoriously private as you suddenly announces an engagement, well, it raises questions. I wasn't aware I needed to consult you about my personal life, Victor said mildly. You don't, but I'm curious by nature. Gabriel's attention fixed on Lena again, and she felt pinned by his gaze like a butterfly on display. Tell me, Lena, how does a nurse end up engaged to a man like Victor Serrano? That's quite a leap. We met. We connected. Sometimes things are simple. Lena met his eyes, refusing to look away first. Simple. Gabriel tasted the word. Nothing about Victor is simple, but perhaps you bring that quality to his life. Balance, as it were. Perhaps I do, Lena said. Victor's hand tightened fractionally on her waist. Approval or warning, she couldn't tell. The three of them stood in a triangle of tension, the party swirling around them, unaware of the danger crackling in the space between words. I should let you two enjoy the evening, Gabriel said finally. But Victor, we still need to have that conversation about the territories, about mutual interests. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., the usual place. Victor's tone left no room for negotiation. Perfect. Gabriel's smile sharpened. And Lena, I do hope we'll have the chance to speak again. I find you absolutely captivating. He melted back into the crowd, leaving Lena feeling like she'd just survived something without fully understanding what. What just happened? She asked quietly. He confirmed you're important to me, which makes you valuable to him. Victor guided her away from the bar, toward the far side of the ballroom. He also confirmed he's planning something. The comment about mutual interest wasn't about territory, it was about you. What does that mean? It means tomorrow's meeting is going to be complicated. Victor stopped near a quieter corner, partially hidden by decorative plants. It also means he's underestimated you, which is good. He expected you to be intimidated. I was intimidated. But you didn't show it. That's what matters. Victor's expression softened slightly. You're stronger than I gave you credit for, Lena Carter. Before Lena could respond, a woman's voice cut through the noise. Victor Serrano, I thought that was you. The woman approaching was stunning. Early 50s, blonde, wearing a red gown that probably cost more than a car. Her smile was bright and her eyes were calculating. Mrs. Grantham, Victor said smoothly, your gala is magnificent, as always. You're too kind. Mrs. Grantham's attention shifted to Lena. And you must be the mysterious fiancé everyone's talking about. Lena, is it? Yes, ma'am. Lena offered her hand. Please call me Patricia. Patricia's handshake was firm. I run the foundation. We focus on children's health initiatives, education programs, that sort of thing. Victor mentioned you're in healthcare? I was a nurse, emergency room. The past tense felt strange in Lena's mouth. How wonderful. We desperately need healthcare professionals on our advisory board. Would you be interested in joining us? Patricia's enthusiasm seemed genuine. We meet monthly, discuss funding allocations, program development. Your perspective would be invaluable. Lena glanced at Victor, uncertain how to respond. He gave a subtle nod. I'd be honored, Lena said. Excellent. I'll have my assistant send you the details. Patricia beamed. Victor, you've found yourself quite a gem. Don't let this one get away. I don't intend to, Victor said, and something in his voice made Lena's skin prickle. Patricia drifted off to greet other guests, and Lena turned to Victor. Was that real? The foundation work? Very real. Patricia Grantham is one of the few genuinely decent people in this room. Victor watched the crowd, ever vigilant. If you want to do something meaningful while you're playing this role, working with her foundation would be legitimate. You'd let me do that? Why wouldn't I? Victor looked genuinely puzzled. This arrangement doesn't mean you stop being who you are, Lena. It just means you're doing it from a different position. The statement caught Lena off guard. She'd assumed Victor would control every aspect of her life during these 6 months, but here he was, encouraging her to maintain her own identity. Maybe he wasn't quite the monster she'd imagined, or maybe this was another manipulation, making her feel valued so she'd be more compliant. Lena couldn't tell anymore. The evening progressed. They dined at a table with other prominent couples, Victor navigating conversations about real estate development and city politics with practiced ease. Lena found herself actually enjoying parts of it. The food was extraordinary, the conversation occasionally interesting, and several of the other women at the table were sharp and funny once you got past the social veneer. During dessert, a man approached their table. He was older, maybe 60, with the bearing of someone accustomed to authority. Victor stood immediately. Mayor Chen, I didn't realize you'd be here tonight. Last-minute decision? My wife insisted. The mayor's eyes found Lena. And you must be the famous Lena Carter. Victor, you didn't mention your fiancé was so charming. They shook hands, and the mayor settled into conversation about the city's new development initiative. Lena half listened, more focused on the way Victor's body language had changed, deferential but not submissive, respectful but maintaining his own power. This was a man who knew how to move through different worlds, adapting his presentation without losing himself. Lena is interested in healthcare policy, Victor said at one point, drawing her into the conversation. She has first-hand experience with emergency care challenges. Really? The mayor's interest sharpened. We're actually developing a task force to address ER overcrowding. Would you be willing to consult? And just like that, Lena found herself agreeing to another legitimate role, another piece of an identity she hadn't expected to build. When the mayor left, Victor leaned close. You're collecting quite the portfolio. Is this part of your plan? Making me indispensable to the community so I can't leave? Victor's expression flickered. No, but it's not a bad side effect. The orchestra began playing something slow and romantic. Couples drifted toward the dance floor, and Victor stood, offering his hand. Dance with me. It wasn't a request. Lena let him lead her onto the floor, his hand settling at her waist, their fingers intertwining. They moved together, and Lena was surprised to find Victor was an excellent dancer, smooth, confident, guiding her effortlessly through the steps. You're full of surprises, she murmured. I had a very thorough education. Victor spun her gently. Dancing, languages, business, violence. My father believed in well-rounded training. The father who died when you were 8? I had other teachers after that. Men who shaped me into what they needed me to be. Victor's voice was carefully neutral. Some of those lessons were useful, others were brutal. Lena felt something twist in her chest. Sympathy, maybe. Or recognition of shared trauma. She'd lost her mother young, had been shaped by that loss into someone who dedicated her life to saving others. They'd both been molded by violence, just in different ways. I'm sorry, she said softly. Don't be. It made me strong enough to survive, to build what I've built. Victor's eyes met hers, and for a moment the mask slipped. To protect what's mine. The possessive language should have bothered her. Instead, Lena felt something flutter in her stomach that had nothing to do with fear. Dangerous. This was dangerous. The song ended. Victor led her back to their table, and Lena excused herself to the restroom, needing a moment alone to process the confusing tangle of emotions. The women's lounge was mercifully empty. Lena stood at the mirror, staring at her reflection, trying to recognize herself. The door opened. A woman entered, petite, dark-haired, beautiful in an understated way. She smiled at Lena in the mirror. You're Victor's fiancée, right? Lena? Yes. Lena turned, some instinct making her wary. I'm Sophia. The woman extended her hand. I work with Gabriel Torres. I just wanted to introduce myself, woman to woman. Every warning Victor had given her flared in Lena's mind. It's nice to meet you. You seem nervous. Sophia's smile was sympathetic. It's overwhelming, isn't it? Being thrust into this world, all these powerful men and their games. I'm managing, Lena said carefully. I'm sure you are. Victor wouldn't have chosen you otherwise. Sophia moved to the mirror, ostensibly to check her makeup. Can I give you some advice? One woman to another. I'm listening. Be careful. These men, Victor, Gabriel, all of them, they see us as pieces on a chessboard, valuable, maybe, protected, certainly, but ultimately expendable when the game gets serious. Sophia met Lena's eyes in the mirror. Victor especially. He's charming when he wants to be, but he's never cared about anyone but himself. Whatever he's promised you, whatever you think this relationship is, remember that to him, you're a strategy. The words landed like punches, each one targeting a fear Lena had been trying to ignore. Thank you for your concern, Lena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. But I can take care of myself. Can you? Sophia turned to face her fully. Because from where I'm standing, you look like someone who's in way over her head. And when you're drowning in these waters, there aren't many people who'll throw you a lifeline. Is this where you offer to be my lifeline? Sophia laughed. Smart girl. Maybe you will survive after all. She moved toward the door, pausing with her hand on the handle. But seriously, Lena, watch your back. Victor's enemies become your enemies now, and some of them are more dangerous than you can imagine. She left, leaving Lena alone with her reflection and a fresh wave of fear. This was a warning. But from whom? Sophia personally, or Gabriel through her? And was it genuine concern or calculated intimidation? Lena had no way to know. She returned to the ballroom to find Victor in conversation with a group of men near the bar. He saw her immediately, his eyes tracking her movement across the room. When she reached him, his hand found hers automatically. Everything all right? He asked quietly. A woman named Sophia introduced herself in the restroom. She works for Gabriel. Victor's expression went cold. What did she say? That I should be careful, that you see me as a strategy, not a person, that your enemies are now my enemies. Lena kept her voice low. Was she wrong? Victor was silent for a long moment. Then he excused them from the conversation and led Lena to a private alcove, out of sight from the main ballroom. She wasn't entirely wrong, he said finally. You are a strategy. This engagement is a calculated move to reshape my public image and secure my position. I've never lied to you about that. But you're also... Victor stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. You're not what I expected. I thought you'd be easy to manage, easy to control. Grateful for the money, compliant with the rules. Instead, you challenge me. You speak your mind. You're stronger than you should be. And it's what? Lena pressed. Complicated. Victor's hand came up, almost touching her face before he caught himself and let it drop. You were supposed to be a temporary solution to a temporary problem. But Gabriel is right to be concerned about you, because you're becoming more than that. Lena's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying Sophia's warning was correct. My enemies are your enemies now, and I'm saying... Victor's jaw tightened. I'm saying that if anything happened to you, it would be more than a strategic loss. Which is a problem, because caring about people in my position gets them killed. The confession hung between them, raw and dangerous. Victor, don't. He stepped back, rebuilding his walls. Don't make this more complicated than it already is. 6 months, remember? That's the deal. But something had shifted, and they both knew it. They returned to the gala, playing their roles with renewed intensity. Lena smiled and laughed and played the perfect fiancée while her mind raced, processing Victor's half-confession and Sophia's warning and the increasingly clear reality that this arrangement was spiraling into something neither of them had anticipated. Near midnight, as the evening wound down, Victor's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Lena saw his expression darken. We need to leave. Now. What's wrong? Security alert at the penthouse. Someone tried to breach the building. Victor's hand was firm on her back, guiding her toward the exit. Could be nothing. Could be a test. They moved quickly, but not frantically, Victor maintaining the appearance of calm while Lena's heart hammered in her chest. The car was waiting, and they slid inside, the doors locking with a solid thunk. Take the long route, Victor told the driver, and keep your eyes open. As they pulled away from the hotel, Lena watched the glittering building recede. Somewhere in there, Gabriel Torres was still playing his games. Sophia was reporting back on their conversation, and a room full of Chicago's elite was gossiping about Victor Serrano's mysterious fiancée. Did they catch whoever tried to get in? Lena asked. No, he ran when security spotted him. Victor was texting rapidly. But we got footage. My people are analyzing it now. You think it was Gabriel? I think Gabriel wants me distracted. He wants me worried about protecting you instead of focused on tomorrow's meeting. Victor's expression was grim, which means it's working. They arrived at the Millennium Tower to find security doubled, armed men in suits stationed at every access point. Victor kept Lena close as they rode the elevator up, his body tense, ready for violence. Inside the penthouse, he did a sweep of every room before allowing Lena to relax. Pack a bag, he said abruptly. Enough for a few days. What? Why? Because you're not staying here until I know it's secure. I have a safe house outside the city. You'll go there tomorrow after I meet with Gabriel. Victor's tone left no room for argument. It's isolated, protected, off any grid he could track. You'll be safe there. And you? I'll handle Gabriel, and then I'll come get you. Victor's eyes met hers, and Lena saw something fierce in them. I told you I'd protect you. I meant it. Lena should have argued, should have protested being shipped off to some safe house like a piece of valuable cargo. Instead, she found herself nodding. Because despite everything, the manipulation, the danger, the impossible situation, she believed him. Victor Serrano would protect her, even if it cost him everything. I'll pack, she said quietly. Victor exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. Good. I'll increase security on your father's location, too. If Gabriel's making moves, he might try multiple angles. When do I leave? Dawn. Before anyone knows you're gone. Victor moved toward his office. Get some rest. Tomorrow will be difficult. Lena climbed the stairs to her bedroom, her mind spinning. The evening had been overwhelming. The gala, Gabriel's veiled threats, Sophia's warning, Victor's confession that she'd become more than a strategy. She packed mechanically, choosing practical clothes this time instead of designer gowns. The sapphire ring caught the light as she moved, and Lena paused to look at it. Something with history, Margaret had said. Something real. Like whatever was developing between her and Victor, something real and dangerous and completely unplanned. Lena lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, knowing sleep wouldn't come easily. Somewhere below, Victor was preparing for tomorrow's confrontation with Gabriel. Somewhere in the city, her father waited in protective custody. Somewhere in the shadows, enemies were plotting. And she was caught in the middle of it all, no longer sure which scared her more. The danger from Victor's enemies or the growing connection to Victor himself. The 6 months suddenly felt both impossibly long and terrifyingly short, because when they ended, what would she walk away from? Her father's safety and her financial freedom, yes. But also this, whatever this was becoming with the dangerous man who'd blackmailed her into his life and was now risking his own to keep her safe. Lena touched the ring on her finger, feeling its weight, its history, its promise. 6 months. 4.5 months left, and everything already changing in ways she never expected. Dawn came cold and gray, the kind of morning that made Chicago feel like the end of the world. Lena had barely slept, her mind replaying the evening's events on an endless loop. When she finally gave up and showered, the hot water did nothing to wash away the anxiety coating her skin. Victor was waiting in the kitchen when she came downstairs, dressed in dark clothing that made him look more dangerous than usual. He had coffee ready, along with something that looked like a breakfast sandwich from a restaurant she didn't recognize. Eat, he said without preamble. It's a 2-hour drive. Lena sat, accepting the food even though her stomach was twisted too tight to feel hunger. Where exactly is this safe house? Far enough that Gabriel won't find you, close enough that I can reach you quickly if needed. Victor poured himself coffee, but didn't drink it, his movements restless. Marcus will drive you. He's been with me for 8 years. You can trust him. The way I trust you? Victor's eyes snapped to hers. I haven't lied to you about anything that matters. You've manipulated every aspect of my life since we met. To keep you alive. Victor set down his cup with careful control. Do you think I enjoy this? Sending you away, knowing Gabriel is circling, knowing that any moment he could... He stopped himself, jaw clenching. You're safer away from me right now. That's all that matters. Lena took a bite of the sandwich, chewing mechanically. What happens at your meeting today? Gabriel will make demands. I'll refuse. We'll negotiate until we reach something we can both live with, or we don't, and things get messier. Victor's tone was matter of fact. Either way, by tonight, I'll know what his actual play is. And if his play is me, then I make it very clear that touching you means war. Victor finally met her eyes fully. I've ended conflicts over less. The casual way he discussed violence should have terrified Lena. Instead, she felt something else. A dark curl of satisfaction that someone was willing to fight for her, even if his motives were complicated. I should go, she said, standing, before I change my mind about all of this. Victor stood too, closing the distance between them in one stride. For a moment, Lena thought he might touch her, his hand lifted slightly, reaching for her face. Then he caught himself, dropping it back to his side. Stay safe, he said quietly. Don't open the door for anyone but Marcus or me. Don't use your phone except for emergencies. And Lena, his voice roughened, don't trust anyone who tells you they're there to help. In my world, help always comes with a price. I learned that when I met you. Victor's smile was sharp and sad. Yes, you did. Marcus was waiting by the car, a mountain of a man with kind eyes and hands that looked like they could break steel. He took Lena's bag without a word, loaded it into the trunk, and opened the back door for her. Lena slid inside, looking back at the building one last time. Victor stood at the entrance, hands in his pockets, watching her leave. In the gray morning light, he looked almost lonely. Then the car pulled away and he disappeared from view. The drive took them out of Chicago and into rural Illinois, the landscape transforming from urban sprawl to empty fields dotted with farmhouses. Marcus drove in silence, his eyes constantly checking the mirrors, watching for tails. "How long have you worked for Victor?" Lena asked eventually, needing to break the oppressive quiet. 8 years, like he said. Marcus's voice was deep, gentle, despite his size. "He saved my life. I've been returning the favor ever since." "Saved your life how?" Marcus glanced at her in the rearview mirror. "I was in a bad situation. Wrong people, wrong choices. Victor gave me an out and a job. Most people in his position would have just removed the problem. He gave me a second chance instead." Lena processed this, adding it to her growing understanding of Victor Serrano, a man who could be ruthless but also merciful, who manipulated but also protected, who claimed not to care but sent her away to keep her safe. "Do you think he's a good man?" she asked. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I think he's a man trying to survive in a world that doesn't forgive weakness. Whether that makes him good or bad depends on where you're standing." It wasn't the answer Lena wanted, but it was probably the most honest one she'd get. The safe house appeared after another hour of driving down increasingly isolated roads. It was a cabin, modern and well-maintained, nestled in a clearing surrounded by dense forest. Solar panels on the roof, security cameras at every corner, and a fence that looked decorative but probably wasn't. "Home for the next few days," Marcus said, pulling up to the entrance. "It's fully stocked. Food, supplies, entertainment. Internet's disabled for security, but there's satellite TV and a library. Cell signal is weak but present. Victor said to call him if you need anything." Lena stepped out, the cold air biting through her jacket. The silence was absolute. No city sounds, no traffic, just wind in the trees and the distant call of birds. "I'll be nearby," Marcus continued, retrieving her bag. "Not in the house, but close. You won't see me unless you need to." He showed her through the space, a compact but comfortable cabin with a main room featuring a stone fireplace, a kitchen stocked with more food than she could eat in a month, a bedroom with a bed that looked cloud-soft, and a bathroom with a shower that could fit 3 people. "Security system is armed automatically," Marcus explained, showing her a tablet mounted by the door. "Green means secure, red means breach. If it goes red, you get to the safe room." He pointed to what looked like a closet door. "Inside, there's a reinforced room with supplies and communication equipment. You lock yourself in and call Victor. Understand?" Lena nodded, her mouth dry. "Has that ever happened before? A breach?" "No, but Victor doesn't take chances." Marcus moved toward the door. "I'll be in touch. Try to relax, Miss Carter. You're probably safer here than anywhere in the city." Then he was gone, leaving Lena alone in a safe house in the middle of nowhere, waiting for a dangerous man to finish a dangerous meeting that would determine her immediate future. She unpacked slowly, filling the unfamiliar space with her few belongings. The cabin was beautiful in an austere way, all clean lines and neutral colors, expensive furniture that looked barely used. It felt more like a showroom than a home, which made sense. This was a place for hiding, not living. Lena tried to occupy herself. She attempted to read one of the books from the well-stocked shelves, but the words blurred together. She turned on the television, but everything felt trivial compared to what was happening back in Chicago. She made tea and stood by the window, watching the forest, jumping at every small sound. Hours crawled past. Morning became afternoon, and still no word from Victor. Lena's phone rang once, a number she didn't recognize. She almost answered before remembering Victor's instructions. Wrong choice, probably. The call went to voicemail, and when she checked, there was only silence and then a hang-up. Her anxiety ratcheted higher. By 3 p.m., she was pacing the cabin like a caged animal. Victor's meeting had been scheduled for 2. It should be over by now. He should have called. Unless something had gone wrong. Lena pulled out her phone, staring at Victor's contact information. He'd said emergencies only. Was her spiraling anxiety an emergency? Before she could decide, the phone rang, Victor's name on the screen. "Hello?" Lena answered immediately. "You're all right." Victor's voice came through rough, strained. "Good. Are you all right? The meeting went exactly as badly as expected." Sounds in the background, traffic, voices. Gabriel made his position clear. He wants territory I'm not willing to give up. More specifically, he wants access to shipping routes I control. And I refused, which means things are about to escalate. Victor's voice hardened. "I need you to stay at the safe house for at least 3 more days, maybe longer. Gabriel has people moving into position, and I need to neutralize the threat before I can bring you back." Lena sank onto the couch. 3 more days alone out here? "I know it's difficult, but Lena..." Victor's voice dropped lower. "Gabriel asked about you specifically during the meeting. He knows you're important to me. He suggested we make a trade." Lena's blood went cold. "What kind of trade?" "You, for the roots." Victor's laugh was bitter. "As if I'd even consider it. But the fact that he asked means he's already planning how to take you if I won't give you up willingly. So I'm bait now. Perfect. You're protected. There's a difference." A car door slammed on Victor's end. "I have to go. I'm implementing security protocols. Marcus will stay close. Don't leave the cabin for any reason. And if anyone approaches who isn't Marcus or me, you get to the safe room immediately. No hesitation." "Victor, wait." "I'll call you tonight. Stay safe, Lena." The line went dead. Lena stared at her phone, the silence of the cabin pressing in around her. 3 more days. Maybe longer. Trapped in a beautiful prison while dangerous men played games with her life as a bargaining chip. She wanted to scream, wanted to run, wanted to wake up in her old apartment and discover this was all a nightmare. Instead, she stood and walked to the kitchen, methodically making herself lunch. She didn't want to eat. Control the things she could control. That's all she had left. The afternoon dragged into evening. Lena watched the sun set through the windows, the forest taking on shadows that seemed menacing in her current state of mind. She checked the security system obsessively. Green, green, green. Around 7, her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You should ask Victor about your father's protection. Ask him what really happened 8 months ago." Lena's hand shook as she read and reread the message. It was obviously from Gabriel or one of his people, obviously designed to sow doubt, to make her question Victor's motives. But the seed was planted. What did she actually know about her father's situation beyond what Victor had told her? She'd seen one video, carefully curated. She'd been given a story that painted Victor as a reluctant protector. What if it was all lies? Lena deleted the message and tried to push the thought away, but it festered, growing in the darkness of isolation and fear. When Victor called that night, Lena almost confronted him about it, almost demanded the truth. "How are you holding up?" he asked, and he sounded exhausted. "I'm fine, bored, anxious." Lena curled up on the couch, the phone pressed tight to her ear. "How are things there?" "Complicated. Gabriel's making moves faster than I anticipated. I've had to pull resources from other operations to shore up defenses." A long pause. "I'm sorry you're caught in the middle of this." "Are you?" The question came out sharper than intended. "What?" "Sorry. Are you actually sorry, or is that just something you say because it sounds right?" Lena's grip tightened on the phone. "Someone sent me a message today. Suggested I ask you about what really happened with my father." Victor's silence was absolute. Then, "Gabriel. Does it matter who sent it if it's true?" "What are you asking me, Lena?" "I'm asking..." She stopped, trying to organize her thoughts. "I'm asking if anything you've told me about my father is actually real. I'm asking if I've been manipulated even more than I thought." "Your father is alive and safe. That part is absolutely true." Victor's voice was tight. "The rest, the circumstances that led to his situation, are more complicated than I initially explained." Lena's stomach dropped. Explain now. Not over the phone, when you're back. No. Now, Victor, or I walk out of this cabin and take my chances on my own. Another pause, longer this time. When Victor spoke again, his voice was raw. Your father didn't just stumble into working for criminals. I recruited him specifically because he had skills I needed and vulnerabilities I could exploit. The words came fast like confession. His gambling debts, his desperation to provide for you, I used all of it. I brought him into my organization knowing exactly what would happen. Lena couldn't breathe. He was supposed to do a simple job, clean some financial records, make certain transactions disappear, but he was too honest for his own good. He started digging, started seeing the full picture. When he threatened to go to the authorities, I couldn't let him walk away with what he knew. So you kidnapped him. Lena's voice was hollow. I saved him. If any of my competitors had found him first, he'd be dead. If he'd actually gone to the FBI, everyone he implicated would have sent people to eliminate him. And you. Victor's breath was ragged. I put him in protective custody because it was the only way to keep him breathing. And then you used him to manipulate me. Yes. No hedging, no excuses. I saw an opportunity and I took it. I needed someone like you, clean background, sympathetic story, enough intelligence to play the role convincingly. Your father's situation gave me leverage. Lena felt tears burning her eyes. Everything was a lie. No, not everything. Victor's voice cracked. I lied about how your father ended up in my custody. I manipulated you into this arrangement, but I didn't lie about protecting him. I didn't lie about keeping you safe, and I didn't... He stopped. Didn't what? I didn't plan on caring whether you lived or died beyond your strategic value. The admission was quiet, devastated. That part wasn't supposed to happen. Lena wiped her eyes angrily. I should have known. I should have known you were lying about something. You did know. Some part of you always knew. Victor's voice was gentle now. But you made the choice anyway because you love your father more than you hate me. That's not weakness, Lena. It's strength. Don't, Lena's voice broke. Don't try to make this into something noble. You destroyed my life. You're still destroying it. I know. Victor sounded broken. I know, and I'm sorry, and it doesn't change anything. But Lena, listen to me. Whatever you're feeling right now, whatever you want to do, wait until you're back. Wait until you're safe. Then decide. Decide what? Whether to walk away. Whether to finish the 6 months. Whether to... He stopped again. Just wait. Please. Lena wanted to throw the phone across the room. Wanted to scream at him, curse him, make him hurt the way she was hurting. Instead, she said, I need time to think. Take all the time you need. But Lena, whatever Gabriel told you, whatever he's planning, he's more dangerous than I've ever been. If you run, he'll find you. And unlike me, he won't keep you alive for strategic reasons. Maybe that would be easier. Don't say that. Victor's voice turned sharp. Don't you dare give up. You're stronger than this. Stronger than me, stronger than Gabriel, stronger than this entire nightmare. You survive. That's what you do. Lena ended the call without responding, her hands shaking so badly she nearly dropped the phone. She sat in the dark cabin, the security system glowing green, and let herself cry for the first time since this all began. Cried for her father, trapped because he'd tried to do the right thing. Cried for herself, manipulated into a web of lies and danger. Cried for the small, foolish part of her that had started to believe Victor might actually care. All of it built on lies. Eventually, the tears stopped. Lena washed her face, made herself eat something, and went to bed in the too soft bed in the too quiet cabin. She dreamed of her father, sitting in that clean white room, waiting for rescue that might never come. The next day dawned brighter, sunlight streaming through windows Lena hadn't bothered to cover. She woke disoriented, momentarily forgetting where she was and why. Then memory crashed back, and with it, anger. Victor had manipulated everything from the beginning. Her father's capture, her recruitment, probably even the threats from Gabriel, all of it orchestrated to serve Victor's purposes. But as Lena made coffee and tried to organize her thoughts, she kept coming back to one question. What was she going to do about it? She could run, Take her chances on her own. Maybe find a way to contact the FBI. Tell them everything. But Victor was right about one thing. Gabriel was out there, actively hunting for her. Running meant becoming prey. She could finish the arrangement, play the role for the remaining months, take the money, get her father to safety, and then disappear. But that meant trusting Victor to keep his end of the bargain, and she wasn't sure she could do that anymore. Or she could do something else entirely. The thought crystallized slowly, dangerously. She could stop being a victim. Stop being a pawn moved around by powerful men who thought they owned her. She could become a player instead. Lena spent the day thinking, planning, considering angles. By evening, when Victor called, she had her answer. "I'm not walking away," she said before he could speak. "Lena, let me finish." Her voice was steel. "I'm not walking away, but the terms of our arrangement are changing. You want me to play your fiancé? Fine. But I want something in return beyond my father's safety." Victor was silent, listening. "I want real information about your business, your enemies, the actual threats we're facing. No more surprises, no more manipulation. If I'm a target anyway, I deserve to know why and from whom." Lena paced the cabin. "I want access to my father, not visits, but video calls. Proof he's actually safe and not another lie you've manufactured." "Done," Victor said immediately. "I'm not finished. I also want training, self-defense, situational awareness, how to spot surveillance. If I'm going to survive your world, I need to know how to protect myself." "I can arrange that. And when this is over, when the 6 months are up, I want double what you originally promised, plus a guarantee that my father and I can disappear completely if we choose. New identities, clean backgrounds, enough money to start over anywhere we want." "You're negotiating," Victor said, and Lena heard something like pride in his voice. "I'm surviving, like you said." Lena stopped pacing. "Do we have a deal?" "We have a deal. But Lena, why? Why stay after everything I've told you?" Lena looked out at the forest, considering her answer carefully. "Because running makes me a victim. Staying makes me a participant. And I'm done being the person things happen to. From now on, I'm making my own choices. Even if those choices are dangerous, especially then." Lena's voice was firm. "When can I come back?" 2 more days. I need to finish securing the perimeter." Victor's voice softened. "For what it's worth, I meant what I said, about not planning to care, about you being stronger than expected." "Save it. I don't need your admiration. I need your honesty and your resources." Lena's tone was crisp. 2 days. Then we do this my way." "Your way," Victor agreed. "I'll send Marcus for you on Friday morning." After the call ended, Lena felt something shift inside her. Fear was still there, yes. Anger, absolutely. But underneath it all was something new, purpose. She wasn't just surviving Victor's world anymore. She was learning to navigate it, and maybe, eventually, to control it. The next 2 days passed slowly but productively. Lena used the cabin's well-stocked library to research everything she could about Chicago's power structures, organized crime history, and self-defense basics. She exercised, pushing her body to remember its strength. She planned. When Marcus arrived Friday morning, Lena was ready. She'd packed her bag, secured the cabin, and mentally prepared herself for re-entering the war zone. "You look different," Marcus observed as they drove back toward Chicago. "I feel different," Lena admitted. "Good different or bad different?" Lena watched the city skyline appear on the horizon, all glass and steel and danger. "We'll see." The penthouse felt different too when she returned, less like a prison, more like a base of operations. Victor was waiting, and when their eyes met, something unspoken passed between them. "Welcome back," he said. "We need to talk strategy," Lena replied. "Gabriel won't wait forever. What's our next move?" Victor's smile was slow and dangerous. "Our next move is making you untouchable. I've arranged training to start tomorrow. Self-defense instructor in the morning, tactical awareness in the afternoon. You'll learn everything you need to know." "And my father?" "Video call is scheduled for tonight, 8 p.m., secured line." Victor moved closer. "I keep my promises, Lena. The ones I make now, anyway." "See that you do," Lena held his gaze. "Because I'm done being manipulated. We're partners now. Or this ends." "Partners," Victor agreed. He extended his hand. Lena shook it, feeling the same electricity she'd felt that first night in his car. But this time, the power dynamic had shifted. She wasn't a victim accepting terms. She was a player making moves of her own. That evening, the video call with her father was everything Lena needed and more. Robert Carter looked healthier than in the first video, less gaunt, though worry still lined his face. Lena, thank heaven, I've been so worried. I'm fine, Dad. I'm safe. Lena's throat tightened. Are you okay? Are they treating you well? Better than I deserve. Her father's eyes glistened. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. I never meant for you to get dragged into this. When Victor told me what he'd done, he told you? Lena glanced at Victor, standing just out of frame. Called me yesterday, explained that you knew everything, that you'd renegotiated terms. Her father's smile was watery. He said you'd become formidable. I told him I could have predicted that. Lena's vision blurred. I miss you, Dad. I miss you too. But Lena, listen to me. Victor Serrano is a complicated man. Dangerous, yes. Manipulative, absolutely. But he keeps his word. If he's promised to protect you, he will. Her father looked directly at the camera. Just don't lose yourself in his world. Remember who you are. I will, I promise. They talked for 20 more minutes, catching up on small things, avoiding the big things. When the call ended, Lena felt both lighter and heavier. Your father is a good man, Victor said quietly. I meant what I told him. When this is over, he'll be free and safe. You both will be. Why did you call him? Lena asked. Why tell him everything? Because you deserve to hear the truth from someone who loves you without agenda. Victor's expression was unreadable. And because he needed to know his daughter is stronger than both of us combined. Before Lena could respond, Victor's phone rang. He answered, listened, and his entire demeanor changed. When? A pause. How many? Another pause. I'm on my way. He ended the call and looked at Lena with an expression that made her blood run cold. Gabriel's made his move. Not against you. Against my shipping operation. 3 of my warehouses just went up in flames simultaneously. Victor was already moving toward his office. This is war now. What do you need from me? Victor stopped, turning back to face her. I need you to stay here, stay safe, and let me handle this. No. Lena stood her ground. We're partners, remember? Tell me what's happening. Tell me how I can help. Victor studied her for a long moment. Then he made a decision. Come with me. It's time you saw what my world actually looks like when the gloves come off. Lena followed him to his office, where multiple screens showed security feeds, financial data, and what looked like tactical maps of the city. Men in suits stood around a conference table, their expressions grim. Gentlemen, Victor said, meet my fiancée, Lena Carter. She'll be participating in our strategy sessions going forward. Several eyebrows rose, but no one objected. Victor was clearly the absolute authority here. For the next 3 hours, Lena listened as Victor and his team dissected Gabriel's attack, identified vulnerabilities, and planned countermeasures. It was brutal, efficient, and absolutely fascinating. She was watching a criminal empire defend itself in real time, and slowly, terrifyingly, she was beginning to understand how it all worked. By midnight, a response strategy was in place. Victor's people would hit 2 of Gabriel's operations simultaneously, a proportional response that sent a message without escalating to full war. We move at dawn, Victor told his team. Coordinate with our people on the south side. Make it clean, make it fast, and make sure Gabriel knows this is a warning, not capitulation. The men filed out, leaving Victor and Lena alone in the office. Lena struggled for words. Intense. That was Tuesday. Victor poured himself a drink, offering one to Lena. She accepted. Welcome to my world. Still want to be partners? Lena sipped the whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat. Yes, but Victor, when you said you cared whether I lived or died, did you mean it? Victor's hand tightened on his glass. I don't say things I don't mean. Not anymore. Not with you. Then prove it. Lena set down her glass. Teach me everything. Make me strong enough that I don't need your protection. Make me an asset instead of a liability. Victor crossed to her, stopping close enough that she could feel his heat. You're already an asset, But if you want to be dangerous, his smile was sharp. I can teach you that too. Then start tomorrow. Lena met his eyes without flinching. Because Gabriel isn't going to wait, and I'm done being afraid. You should be afraid, Victor said quietly. Fear keeps you smart. Then I'll be smart and dangerous. Lena's voice was steel wrapped in silk. Just like you. Victor's expression shifted into something Lena couldn't quite read. Respect, maybe, or recognition, or something far more complicated. Tomorrow, he agreed, we start making you into someone Gabriel Torres will regret underestimating. Lena nodded, feeling the weight of her decision settle over her shoulders like armor. She'd entered Victor's world as a victim, survived as a pawn, and negotiated her way to partnership. Now it was time to become something else entirely. Something powerful enough to stand beside a man who ruled an empire built on shadows and steel. 4 months left in their arrangement. Everything was about to change. Training began at 6 the next morning with a woman named Elena Vasquez who looked like she could kill someone with a pencil and probably had. She was compact, efficient, and completely unsympathetic to Lena's initial clumsiness. Again, Elena said for the 20th time, as Lena failed to execute a proper defensive stance. You're thinking too much. Your body knows what to do. Let it. They were in a private gym on the penthouse's lower level, a space Lena hadn't known existed. Mats covered the floor, weapons lined one wall, and mirrors reflected her failures from every angle. I'm a nurse, not a fighter, Lena protested, breathing hard. You're whatever you decide to be. Elena moved like water, demonstrating the technique again. Victor says you're smart. Prove it. Learn. So Lena learned. Over the next 3 weeks, she absorbed everything Elena taught her. How to break holds, where to strike for maximum damage, how to use an attacker's momentum against them. Her body ached constantly, muscles discovering existence she hadn't known they had, but she pushed through. In the afternoons, a man named Chen taught her situational awareness, how to spot surveillance, identify exits, read body language for threats. He took her into the city, into crowds and quiet streets, teaching her to see the world the way Victor did, as a chessboard where every person was either an asset, a threat, or irrelevant. Most people walk through life blind, Chen explained as they sat in a coffee shop, watching the flow of pedestrians. They don't see the man who's been following them for 3 blocks. Don't notice the car that's appeared behind them twice. Don't register when someone asks too many questions. And you see all of it, Lena said, spotting the tale Chen had arranged as a test. A woman in a blue coat who'd been too consistent in her distance. Now you do too, Chen smiled. You're a natural. Victor chose well. Lena wasn't sure whether to be flattered or disturbed that she was good at this. At night, she attended events with Victor, playing the role of devoted fiancé while watching everything with her newly trained eyes. She began to see the patterns Chen had taught her, the power dynamics, the alliances, the subtle threats exchanged over champagne and canapés. Gabriel appeared at several functions, always charming, always watching. But Lena noticed things now, the way his security positioned themselves, the people he spoke to and in what order, the tells that indicated when he was genuinely amused versus strategically pleasant. You're learning, Victor observed one evening as they drove home from a gallery opening. I can see you cataloging information. Is that what you do? Constantly analyze everything? It's the only way to survive. Victor loosened his tie, the gesture weary. The moment you stop paying attention is the moment someone gains advantage. That sounds exhausting. It is. Victor looked at her, and Lena saw something vulnerable in his expression. But lately it's been less exhausting, having someone to share the burden. The confession hung between them, dangerous and honest. They'd been living in strange intimacy for weeks now, training together, strategizing together, facing threats together. The line between performance and reality had blurred until Lena couldn't identify it anymore. She caught herself watching Victor when she thought he wasn't looking. Noticed the way his eyes found her in crowded rooms, felt the weight of his hand on her back like a brand she didn't hate. Dangerous. This was so dangerous. Victor, Lena said carefully, what happens when the 6 months are up? Victor's jaw tightened. We had a deal. You're free to go. That's not what I asked. What are you asking? Lena didn't know. She didn't know what she wanted anymore, and that terrified her more than Gabriel's threats or the violence simmering beneath the surface of Victor's world. The question went unanswered as they arrived home, the moment dissolving into the routine of security checks and separation into their respective spaces. But it lingered, unanswered, as the weeks progressed. 2 months into their arrangement, halfway through, everything changed. Lena was leaving a meeting with Patricia Grantham's foundation, discussing a new healthcare initiative they were developing, when she noticed the tail. A man in a gray jacket, too interested in his phone, positioned wrong for a casual pedestrian. She didn't panic. Chen's training kicked in automatically. She varied her route, ducked into a store, watched through the window as Gray Jacket passed, then circled back when he realized he'd lost her. Amateur, or someone who wanted to be spotted. Lena pulled out her phone and called Victor. I have a tail, gray jacket, brown hair, approximately 6 feet. He's sloppy, either inexperienced or trying to send a message. Where are you? Victor's voice was instantly sharp, alert. Lena gave her location. Should I lose him or let him follow? Can you lose him safely? Yes. Then do it. Marcus is 2 minutes away. He'll pick you up at the corner of State and Madison. Lena executed the escape exactly as Chen had taught her. Quick turns, crowding into groups, using reflections to track without looking back. By the time she reached the pickup point, Gray Jacket was gone, and Marcus was pulling up to the curb. Nice work, Marcus said as she slid into the car. Victor's impressed. Victor's paranoid, Lena corrected, but she was smiling despite the adrenaline crash. Back at the penthouse, Victor was waiting with his security team, pulling up footage from street cameras to identify Gray Jacket. There, Chen said, freezing a frame. I know him. Works for the Volkov organization. Volkov? Victor's expression darkened. Not Gabriel. Mikhail Volkov runs the Eastern Territories. Drugs, mostly. Some human trafficking. Chen enlarged the image. If he's moving on you, it means Gabriel's been building alliances. Or Volkov sees opportunity in our conflict and wants to exploit it. Victor turned to Lena. You did well today. Exactly right response. I had good teachers. Lena studied the man on the screen. Unremarkable, forgettable, which probably made him dangerous. What do we do about this? We send a message that you're not an easy target. Victor pulled out his phone. And we accelerate our timeline. What timeline? Victor's eyes met hers. The one where we end this war before it consumes everything. That night, Victor's response was surgical and devastating. 3 of Volkov's operations went dark simultaneously, not destroyed but seized, the assets redistributed to Victor's network. It was a power play that said, I can take what's yours whenever I choose. Lena watched it unfold from Victor's office, seeing the efficiency of his organization in action. Within 6 hours, Volkov's people were scrambling, and Gabriel, who'd been counting on Volkov as an ally, found his position weakened. You're consolidating power, Lena observed, removing pieces from the board. I'm ending threats before they materialize. Victor pulled up a new screen showing financial transfers. By tomorrow, Volkov will either bend knee or go to war. If he's smart, he'll choose the former. And if he's not, then we remove him entirely. Victor's voice was cold, final. I've been patient with Gabriel because open war is bad for everyone. But my patience has limits, and someone targeting you crossed that limit. The possessive edge in his voice made something flutter in Lena's chest. She pushed it down, focusing on the tactical situation. What about Gabriel? He's still the primary threat. Gabriel is about to receive a very clear message. Victor pulled up blueprints of what looked like a warehouse. Tomorrow night, we're hitting his primary distribution center. Not destroying it, taking it. He'll wake up to find one of his most profitable operations under my control. That's going to provoke him. That's the point. I want him angry. Angry people make mistakes. Victor's smile was sharp. And when Gabriel makes his mistake, we end this. Lena should have been horrified by the casual discussion of criminal warfare. Instead, she found herself analyzing the strategy, identifying strengths and weaknesses in Victor's plan. His security will be expecting retaliation after the warehouses, she said. You'll need a distraction. Victor turned to her fully, something like pride in his expression. What did you have in mind? They planned together deep into the night, Lena contributing ideas that made Victor's team exchange surprised glances. She'd learned well, absorbed everything they'd taught her, and now she was applying it with an aptitude that surprised even herself. By 3 a.m., the plan was solid. Victor dismissed his team, leaving him and Lena alone in the office. "You should be sleeping," he said, but he made no move to leave. "So should you." Lena stood, stretching muscles sore from training. "Victor, can I ask you something?" "Always." "When this is over, when Gabriel is neutralized and the threats are gone, what happens to your empire? Do you just find new enemies to fight?" Victor was quiet for a long moment. "I used to think that's all there was. Building power, defending territory, always fighting. But lately I've been wondering if there's something else." "Like what?" "Like actually using what I've built for something beyond survival." Victor moved to the window, looking out at the city. "You've been working with Patricia's foundation, doing real good with real resources. It made me think about what I could do if I redirected some of my operations toward legitimate causes." Lena joined him at the window. "You mean going legal?" "I mean going useful. There's a difference." Victor's reflection met hers in the glass. "I'll never be a good man, Lena. But maybe I could be a man who does some good, with the right influence." The implication was clear. He was talking about her influence, about what she'd brought to his life beyond strategy and appearance. "That's a nice dream," Lena said softly, "but dreams don't end wars." "No, action does." Victor turned to face her. "Tomorrow night, we take the first step toward ending this. After that, we'll see what's possible." The next evening, Lena watched from a secure vehicle as Victor's team executed the operation with military precision. She wasn't allowed anywhere near the actual conflict. Victor had been adamant about that, but she had access to all communication channels and video feeds. The distraction worked perfectly. While Gabriel's security focused on a supposed breach at his secondary location, Victor's people walked into the primary warehouse like they owned it, because within 20 minutes, they did. "Target secured," came the report. "Minimal resistance. Product and records in our possession." Victor, sitting beside Lena in the vehicle, allowed himself a small smile. "Phase 1 complete." "What's Phase 2?" Lena asked. "We wait for Gabriel to make his move. It won't take long." It took 3 hours. The call came at midnight. Gabriel requesting an immediate meeting. Not tomorrow, not at the usual neutral location, now at a place of his choosing. "It's a trap," Lena said immediately. "Obviously." Victor studied the message. "But it's also an opportunity. Gabriel's rattled, moving too fast. That's when mistakes happen." "You're not actually considering going?" "I'm considering ending this tonight instead of dragging it out for weeks." Victor looked at her. "But I need you somewhere safe first. Not the penthouse. Gabriel knows that location. The safe house." "No?" Lena's voice was firm. "We're partners, remember? I should be there." "Absolutely not. This is different from strategy sessions and surveillance detection. This is direct confrontation with a dangerous man who wants to hurt me by hurting you." Victor's expression was steel. "You don't go anywhere near Gabriel Torres tonight. Then neither do you. Send someone else, negotiate remotely. Do anything except walk into an obvious trap." "I can't show weakness now. Not when we're this close to winning." Victor's hand found hers. "But I can make sure you're protected. Please, Lena. Let me do this knowing you're safe." The pleas broke her resistance. Lena had never heard Victor beg for anything. "Fine. But you wear a wire. I hear everything that happens. And if things go wrong, Marcus gets you out of the city immediately. New identity, new life, everything we discussed." Victor squeezed her hand. "Your father, too. I've already arranged it as a contingency." "Victor, no arguments. This is non-negotiable." His eyes were intense. "If I don't make it out tonight, you do. That's the deal." Lena wanted to argue, wanted to refuse. But the look on Victor's face told her this was a battle she wouldn't win. "Come back," she said instead. "That's my non-negotiable term." "You come back." Victor's expression softened. "I'll do my best." An hour later, Lena was in a secure room in one of Victor's auxiliary buildings, surrounded by monitors showing multiple camera angles and audio feeds. Marcus stood guard at the door. Chen monitored the technical equipment. and Victor walked into Gabriel Torres's trap. The meeting location was a warehouse in the industrial district, Gabriel's territory, filled with his people. Victor arrived with 4 of his own security, a show of strength that was really tactical disadvantage. They were outnumbered 3-1. Lena watched it all unfold through the cameras Victor's team had managed to place earlier. Saw Victor walk into the warehouse with confidence that looked like arrogance. Saw Gabriel waiting with that charming smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Victor, so good of you to come," Gabriel's voice came through crystal clear. "I have to admit, I didn't think you'd have the balls to show up." "You wanted to talk. I'm here. Talk." Victor's voice was calm, controlled. "Oh, I don't think talking is going to solve our problems anymore." Gabriel gestured, and his men raised weapons, not pointing at Victor yet, but the threat was clear. "See, you've been very persistent about refusing to give me what I want. The territory, the shipping routes, and most recently my warehouse. You took something of mine, Victor. I don't appreciate that. Then you shouldn't have targeted what's mine." Victor didn't move, didn't show fear. "We can end this tonight, Gabriel. Peaceful resolution. You keep the south side, I keep the waterfront, and we both profit from reduced conflict." "That's not good enough anymore." Gabriel's smile widened. "I want it all. Your territory, your operations, your resources. And I want that pretty little nurse you've been parading around as your fiancée. I want to see the great Victor Serrano broken and begging." Lena's hands clenched. Chen put a warning hand on her shoulder. "Not happening," Victor said simply. "No?" Gabriel pulled out a gun, pointing it casually at Victor's head. "I think you'll find I'm in a position to demand whatever I want." "You're in a position to start a war you can't win." Victor's voice was still calm. "You kill me, my entire organization descends on you. Volkov won't help. I made sure of that. The Santini family won't risk it. You'll be alone, surrounded, and dead within a week. Maybe, but you'll be dead tonight, and that's worth it." Gabriel's finger moved to the trigger. Lena stopped breathing. Then Victor smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." Lights exploded throughout the warehouse, blinding, disorienting. The cameras went dark for 3 seconds that felt like hours. When they came back online, everything had changed. Victor's 4 security weren't security at all. They were his best tactical team, already moving, weapons drawn. The warehouse doors burst open and more of Victor's people poured in. Gabriel's men, disoriented by the lights and the sudden reversal, scrambled for position. It was over in less than 2 minutes. Gabriel found himself on his knees, surrounded, his own gun turned on him by one of Victor's people. His men were disarmed, contained, no longer a threat. Victor stood over Gabriel, completely in control, and Lena realized this had been the plan all along. Not negotiation, capture. "You made a critical mistake, Gabriel," Victor said quietly. "You thought I'd come here vulnerable. You thought I'd walk into your trap without a plan." "You're going to kill me," Gabriel spat. "No, I'm going to make you irrelevant." Victor gestured, and his people began securing Gabriel's men. "By tomorrow morning, every operation you control will be under my management or destroyed. Every ally you have will receive a very clear message about what happens when you target my people. And you're going to disappear, not dead, just gone, living somewhere quiet with enough money to survive and enough fear to never come back." "You can't." "I already have." Victor crouched down to Gabriel's level. "The woman you threatened? She means more to me than my entire empire. You never had a chance of winning once you made her a target. You just didn't realize it until now." Watching from the secure location, Lena felt something crack open in her chest. He meant it, every word. Victor stood, giving orders to his team. "Get him out of here. Make sure Volkov and the Santini family see what happened tonight. Make sure everyone understands that my organization is off limits. And make sure Gabriel's operations are completely dismantled by dawn." "What about the others?" one of his men asked, gesturing to Gabriel's captured security. "They work for me now, or they don't work at all. Their choice." Victor was already moving toward the exit. "I'm done here." The feed cut as Victor left the warehouse. Lena sat back, her heart pounding, trying to process what she'd just witnessed. Victor had won. Decisively, brutally, completely. And he'd done it partially for her. 20 minutes later, Victor walked into the secure room. He had a cut above his eyebrow, Someone had gotten in a hit during the chaos, but otherwise looked unharmed. Lena launched herself at him without thinking, wrapping her arms around him, feeling his heartbeat against hers. "You're alive," she said into his chest. Victor's arms came around her, holding her tight. "I promised I'd come back." That was insane. Reckless. You could have been killed. But I wasn't. Victor pulled back slightly, looking down at her. And now it's over. Gabriel's neutralized, his organization absorbed or destroyed. The war is done. Lena realized she was crying and didn't care. "You did that for me. You said it yourself, because I was threatened. I did it for both of us." Victor's hand came up, wiping away her tears. "But yes, for you. Because somewhere in the past 2 months, you stopped being a strategy and became..." He stopped. "Became what?" Lena whispered. "Everything." Victor's voice was raw, honest. "You became everything, Lena Carter, and I don't know what to do about that." Lena looked up at this dangerous man who'd manipulated her into his life and somehow ended up meaning more than he should. Who'd taught her to be strong and valued that strength. Who'd gone to war partially to protect her. "Kiss me," she said. Victor's eyes widened. "Lena, we've been pretending for 2 months, playing roles, maintaining distance. But it hasn't been pretend for a while, has it?" Lena's hands fisted in his shirt. "So stop pretending and kiss me." Victor's control shattered. His mouth found hers, and Lena felt everything shift. The fear, the anger, the confusion all transforming into something else. Something fierce and real and terrifying. This wasn't part of the arrangement. This was real. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Victor rested his forehead against hers. "This complicates everything," he said. "I know. We still have 4 months left in our deal. I know that too. And you still hate me for manipulating you into this." Lena pulled back to meet his eyes. "I should hate you, but I don't. I don't know what I feel anymore, except that walking away in 4 months suddenly seems impossible." Victor's expression was vulnerable in a way Lena had never seen. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying maybe we renegotiate. Again." Lena's voice was steady despite her racing heart. "Maybe we figure out what this is when it's not about 6 months and contracts and survival. Maybe we try being real," Victor finished. "No performances, no strategies, just us." "Is there an us without all that?" "I don't know." Victor's hand cupped her face. "But I'd like to find out." Lena kissed him again, softer this time. A promise instead of a question. When they finally made it back to the penthouse, dawn was breaking over Chicago. Lena stood at the windows, watching the city wake up, feeling Victor's presence behind her. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we start transitioning my operations toward legitimate business. Use the foundation work you've been doing as a template." Victor joined her at the window. "It'll take time, years probably, but with the right approach and the right partner, you're really serious about this. Going legal." "Semi-legal," Victor corrected with a slight smile. "Some things will always operate in gray areas, but the trafficking, the drugs, the violence, that can end. I can build something different." "Why?" "You've won. You control more territory than ever. Because you made me want something more than power." Victor's voice was quiet. "You made me want to be someone you could choose without coercion or contracts. Someone worthy of what? Of you." Victor turned her to face him. "I know I have no right to ask this after everything I've done, but when the 6 months end, when you're free to walk away..." "Yes," Lena interrupted. "You don't know what I'm asking." "Yes, I do. And yes." Lena's smile was soft. "You're asking if I'll stay. If I'll choose this, choose you, without manipulation or threats. And I'm saying yes." Victor looked stunned. "Just like that?" "Not just like that. I'm saying yes because you've kept every promise you've made to me since I demanded honesty. Because you've made me stronger instead of trying to control me. Because you went to war to protect me and then gave me the choice to walk away." Lena's hand found his. "I'm saying yes because somewhere in this insane nightmare, I fell in love with you. Not the version you perform for the world, but the complicated, dangerous, occasionally decent man underneath." "I don't deserve that," Victor said roughly. "Probably not. But you're getting it anyway. Lena leaned into him. On one condition. Anything. My father. I want him here, safe, with a real life. Not in protective custody, not in hiding. Here, where I can see him. Done. I'll arrange it today. Victor's arms came around her. Anything else? The ring. This one stays, but when the 6 months end, I want you to ask me again, properly this time, without manipulation or contracts. Just you asking and me choosing. Victor's laugh was surprised and genuine. You want me to propose? For real? I want to know what it feels like when it's real, when there's no agenda behind it. Lena looked up at him. Can you do that? In 4 months, I'm going to give you the most honest proposal you've ever heard, Victor promised. And if you say yes then, knowing everything you know about me and my world, I will, Lena said confidently, but I want to hear it anyway. They stood together as the sun rose higher, Chicago spreading out below them like a kingdom they'd fought to protect. Somewhere in the city, Gabriel Torres was being relocated to a life of quiet obscurity. Somewhere, Lena's father was being prepared for transfer back to civilization. Somewhere, Victor's empire was transforming from criminal enterprise to something with the potential for actual good. And here, in this penthouse that had started as a prison and become a home, two people who should never have worked were figuring out how to build something real from a foundation of lies. The next 4 months passed in a blur of activity. Victor began the careful process of legitimizing his operations, divesting from anything involving human suffering and investing in businesses that actually helped people. Lena worked full-time with Patricia's foundation, using her nursing background and Victor's resources to establish free clinics in underserved neighborhoods. Her father, Robert Carter, returned to Chicago with a full pardon arranged through Victor's connections and a job managing the financial side of the foundation's work. He and Lena had dinner together weekly, rebuilding their relationship, both of them healing from the trauma of separation. He's good for you, Robert said one evening, watching Victor across the restaurant where they were dining. I never thought I'd say that about the man who, well, but he is. He's complicated, Lena agreed. So are you now, her father smiled. My daughter, the criminal's wife. Not wife, not yet. Lena twisted the sapphire ring. 4 more weeks. You're really waiting for him to ask again? I need to know it's real, that he's choosing me without any agenda behind it. Robert squeezed her hand. Sweetheart, the way that man looks at you, it's real. Has been for a while, but I understand wanting to hear it. The 6-month mark arrived on a cold March evening, exactly as planned. Lena woke to find Victor already awake, watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It's been 6 months, he said quietly. I know. You're free, legally, contractually, in every way that matters. Victor sat up, suddenly looking uncertain in a way she'd never seen. You can walk away right now with everything I promised. Your father's safe, you're financially secure, and I'll never contact you again if that's what you want. Lena's heart pounded. This was it, the moment of real choice. What do you want? She asked. I want... Victor stopped, started again. I want you to stay. I want to marry you for real, build a life together, wake up next to you for the rest of my existence. But I want you to choose that freely, knowing you have every other option available. Ask me, Lena said softly. What? You said in 4 months you'd ask me properly. It's been 6. Ask me, Victor. Victor slid out of bed, and Lena's breath caught as he actually got down on one knee beside the bed. From his nightstand drawer, he pulled out a box she'd never seen. I bought this 3 months ago, he said, opening it to reveal a ring. Not the sapphire she wore, but a new one. Simple, elegant, perfect. I was going to wait until tonight, make it some elaborate production, but I can't wait anymore. Victor. Lena Carter, you walked into my life as a pawn and became a queen. You transformed me from a man who only understood power into someone who wants to deserve you. You're brilliant, strong, compassionate, and more dangerous than you realize. I love you completely, without agenda or manipulation. So I'm asking, will you marry me? For real this time. Not for 6 months, but forever. Lena was crying, laughing, her heart so full it hurt. Yes, of course, yes. Victor slid the new ring onto her finger next to the sapphire, and Lena pulled him up to kiss him thoroughly. "Both rings," she said when they broke apart. "I want to wear both, the one that started as a lie and the one that's completely true." "Whatever you want." Victor's smile was pure joy. "Everything I have is yours." "I don't want your empire. I just want you." Lena leaned her forehead against his. "The real you. The complicated mess of good intentions and criminal past and possibility for redemption." "Then you have me. Completely." They married a month later in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Patricia Grantham officiated, her foundation work having qualified her as a minister. Robert Carter walked Lena down the aisle, tears streaming down his face. Marcus stood as Victor's best man, Elena as Lena's maid of honor. The vows they wrote themselves were honest about their unconventional beginning and hopeful about their future. When Victor promised to cherish Lena for the rest of his life, his voice broke. When Lena promised to stand beside him through whatever came next, she meant every word. The reception was held at the penthouse, transformed with flowers and light into something magical. Chicago spread out below them, the city they'd both fought to survive in and were now working to improve. "Happy?" Victor asked as they danced, other guests swirling around them. "Deliriously," Lena admitted. "Though 6 months ago, if you'd told me I'd marry you willingly, I would have laughed in your face. 6 months ago, if someone told me I'd fall in love and mean it, I would have had them committed." Victor spun her gently. "Life is strange." "Life is beautiful," Lena corrected. "Complicated and messy and sometimes terrifying, but beautiful." As the evening wound down and guests departed, Lena found herself back at the windows, looking out at the city. Her city now, in a way it hadn't been before. She'd started as an invisible nurse barely surviving, and now she ran healthcare initiatives that helped thousands. She'd been manipulated into a criminal's world and ended up transforming it from the inside. Victor joined her, wrapping his arms around her from behind. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For choosing me. For seeing something in me worth saving." Victor's voice was rough with emotion. "For being strong enough to change everything." Lena turned in his arms, looking up at the man who'd once terrified her and now held her heart completely. "We changed each other," she said. "That's how partnerships work." "Is that what we are? Partners?" "Partners, lovers, co-conspirators in making the world slightly better." Lena smiled. "And apparently, husband and wife." "Oh, I like the sound of that," Victor said, kissing her softly. "Mrs. Serrano." "I'm keeping Carter professionally," Lena warned. "The foundation work is under that name." "Whatever makes you happy." Victor's expression was soft, content in a way she'd never seen before their relationship became real. "As long as you're mine, I don't care what name you use." "Yours," Lena agreed, "but only because I choose to be. Never forget that." "Never," Victor promised. They stood together as the city lights flickered below, two people who'd started as adversaries and become everything to each other. The journey had been twisted, dark, built on lies that transformed into truth. But the ending, this moment, this choice, this love, was entirely real. And as Lena leaned into Victor's embrace, wearing 2 rings that told 2 different stories, she knew she'd made the right choice. Not the safe choice, not the easy choice, but the right one. She'd walked into Victor Serrano's world as a victim and emerged as a partner powerful enough to stand beside an empire builder. She'd been manipulated into a 6-month contract and chosen to stay forever. The nurse who'd been invisible had become the woman who changed a criminal into something better. And the man who'd never intended to let her go had given her every opportunity to leave, and loved her more when she chose to stay. Together, they would build something new. Not perfect, not completely clean, but better than what came before. Together, they were unstoppable. And as the first day of their real marriage drew to a close, Lena Carter Serrano smiled, knowing that sometimes the most beautiful love stories started with the darkest circumstances. Sometimes the monster became a man worth loving, and sometimes the victim became the hero of her own story. This was theirs, messy, complicated, and absolutely real, forever.